Chapter 1633. An alchemist who could refine such a bottle of high-grade spirit pills was naturally not bad at alchemy. He carefully put down the bottle of high-grade treasured body pills and picked up the second bottle. Opening the bottle and smelling the pill fragrance, Chao Xiang immediately judged that this was another bottle of treasured body pills, but this bottle seemed to be a little different from the previous one. After carefully distinguishing it, he was slightly moved. Could this be a top-grade treasured body pill? Pouring out a pill from the jade bottle and carefully examining it, Chao Xiang quickly determined that this was indeed a bottle of top-grade treasured body pills. This was a rare good. No matter how high an alchemist's alchemy skills were, it was not easy to refine a top-grade spirit pill. There were many factors that could affect the quality of the spirit pill during the refining process. The quality of the raw materials, the control of the fire, the material of the pill furnace, and even the mood of the alchemist would affect the result of the pill. Therefore, no matter how experienced an alchemist was, it was not easy to refine a top-grade spirit pill. To refine a top-grade spirit pill, one had to rely on skill and two had to rely on luck. Chao Xiang found that he had underestimated the alchemist in front of him. In addition, Lu Yi was disguised as Yu Yao, which made him even more respectful. Putting down the second bottle of treasured body pills, Chao Xiang picked up the third bottle. This time, judging from the pill fragrance, the mid-grade pill was definitely not a treasured body pill, but a spirit pill that targeted the soul. It should be a spirit refining pill without a doubt. Chao Xiang was immediately shocked. Although the treasured body pill was not bad, its value could not be compared to the spirit refining pill. After all, the main ingredient of the latter was the spirit refining grass. It could be said that even if the quality of the spirit refining pill in his hand was only mid-grade, its value was much higher than the top-grade treasured body pill. Moreover, through the pill fragrance, Chao Xiang judged that the spirit refining pill in his hand was not only mid-grade, it was actually a high-grade spirit refining pill. The difficulty of refining a spirit refining pill was much greater than that of a treasured body pill. The fact that the alchemist in front of him could refine a top-grade treasured body pill was not enough to move Chao Xiang. To be able to refine such a high-grade spirit refining pill undoubtedly meant that the other party's alchemy skills had at least reached the level of a master. However, Chao Xiang was someone who had seen the world. He dealt with customers all year round, so his horizons were naturally not comparable to ordinary people. Therefore, although he realized that the quality of the spirit refining pill was not bad, he still looked normal. He gently put it down and picked up the last bottle. As usual, he sniffed the pill fragrance. In the next moment, Chao Xiang's eyes suddenly widened. He couldn't help but exclaim, This time, he didn't ask for Lu Ye's permission. Shocked, he quickly poured out a spirit refining pill from the jade bottle and examined it carefully. The more he looked, the more surprised he became. After looking at the first pill, he still couldn't do it, so he looked at the second pill. It wasn't until he had looked at all of the spirit refining pills that Chao Xiang managed to suppress his abnormal expression. However, the shock in his heart couldn't be any greater, because this bottle was actually filled with top-grade spirit refining pills. All of them were the same size and color. Although he had made deals with many alchemists and bought top-grade spirit pills from others, in reality he rarely had the opportunity to buy an entire bottle. Most of the time, he would only buy 1 or 2 pills, and some would even buy 3 or 4 pills. And this was the first time in history that an entire bottle of top-grade spirit refining pill had appeared. Therefore, it wasn't that he liked to make a fuss over nothing, but that he had never encountered such a situation before. Gently taking a deep breath, Chao Xiang pondered for a moment before asking, Honored guest, are these spirit pills for sale? Lu Yi calmly swallowed a mouthful of tea and put on the airs of an alchemy grandmaster. If they aren't for sale, are they for entertainment? Chao Xiang blushed with shame. Honored guest must be joking. Since they are for sale, this Chao will make the decision to offer a price. Of course, if honored guest is satisfied, the transaction is complete. If honored guest is not satisfied, we can discuss it again. Myriad Elephant Chamber of Commerce has opened its doors to do business and pays particular attention to honesty and fairness. Lu Yi declined to comment. Chao Xiang immediately pointed to the bottle of high-grade treasure body pills and offered a price, but Lu Yi remained indifferent. Chao Xiang wasn't sure if this price satisfied honored guest, but the price he offered was indeed very fair. After setting a price for the bottle of top-grade treasure body pills, Lu Yi found that although there was only a difference of 1 grade between top-grade and top-grade treasure body pills, the price was more than 3 times higher. However, because the treasure body pill itself was not a rare item in the Myriad Elephant Sea, the raw materials for refining this pill were also very easy to obtain. It was not necessary to use spirit fish, but there were many alternatives, so although the price was beautiful, it was still reasonable. Because Lu Yi had a channel to obtain spirit fish, if he used the flesh and blood of spirit fish to refine treasure body pills, he could save a lot of materials. In this way, even if it was a white spirit fish, if its flesh and blood essence were refined into a treasure body pill, the price would increase by more than 10 times. It was not bad. In the future, even if the three-world island only relied on selling treasure body pills, they could still maintain the cultivation needs of hundreds of cultivators. However, the treasure body pills were only a side benefit. What Lu Yi wanted to know was the price of the spirit refining pill. When it came to the spirit refining pill, Chao Xiang was obviously more cautious and offered a price for the bottle of high-grade spirit refining pill. Lu Yi immediately became spirited because the price of this bottle of high-grade spirit refining pill was 5 times higher than the top-grade treasure body pills. However, thinking about it carefully, it wasn't that strange. This was because the refining materials were different. This bottle of spirit refining pills required a spirit refining grass as the main material, but that bottle of treasure body pills didn't require a whole spirit fish. What about this bottle? Lu Yi pointed at the top-grade spirit refining pill and asked. The value of high-grade spirit refining pill was so high, there must be more top-grade ones. Chao Xiang did not directly offer a price, but said, "If honored guest trusts me, I have a suggestion. You might as well listen." Speak. Chao Xiang said, "In 5 days, the Chamber of Commerce will hold an auction. If honored guest wants to maximize the value of this pill, I suggest that this pill be auctioned. I believe that many people will be interested in this pill. At that time, the price will definitely satisfy you." Hearing this, Lu Yi suddenly remembered that the last time he participated in the Myriad Elephant Chamber of Commerce's auction, he had indeed taken out a bottle of top-grade spirit pills for auction. At that time, it had been snatched up. That day, the spirit pills were only used for recovery. In terms of use and value, they could not compare to the spirit refining pill. Therefore, this bottle of spirit refining pills did indeed have the qualifications to be auctioned and would definitely sell for a high price. This was especially true for the Yu Yao, who had the most urgent need for this item. This was because if the Yu Yao wanted to advance to the Sunshine Realm, they would have to consider the sublimation of their spirit, which referred to their divine sense. The Yu Yao's value naturally could not be compared to the star mansions, so if the spirit refining pills were to be auctioned, it would not be a problem to sell them for a good price. Chao Xiang's suggestion was indeed out of consideration for Lu Yi. Of course, he could also take advantage of this opportunity to add to the auction's excitement. However, how could Lu Yi have the time to wait for an auction? Moreover, he was worried that these bottles of spirit pills would attract the attention of others. Even if the Myriad Elephant Chamber of Commerce had a good reputation, there were still some things that needed to be taken care of. Otherwise, he would not have disguised himself as a Yu Yao. Immediately, Dan said, "Name a price. If it's appropriate, I will sell them to your Chamber of Commerce. As for the auction, forget about it." Chao Xiang sighed inwardly. But then again, if he bought this bottle of top-grade spirit pills, he could also sell it at the auction. Moreover, it would bring even more profit to the Chamber of Commerce. Therefore, after pondering for a moment, Chao Xiang named a price. This price was 10 times higher than the price of the high-grade spirit refining pill. Lu Yi quickly calculated in his mind. Before he left, he had specifically asked Hua Ci and Shui Yuan about the materials and quantities needed to refine these spirit pills, so it was easy to calculate the profit. The top-grade body refining pills profit was about 5 times, which could be considered a huge profit. The spirit refining pills profit was even more incredible. Just the high-grade spirit refining pills profit was about 10 times, and the top-grade spirit refining pills profit was 100 times. Li Shang had told Lu Yi the price of the spirit refining grass. One stalk was about 5,000 spirit jades. Including the other materials, the cost of this bottle of spirit refining pills would not exceed 10,000 spirit jades. However, if sold, it would be worth at least 1,000,000 spirit jades. 1,000,000 spirit jades was not too much in Lu Ye's eyes, but to an ordinary cultivator, it was not a small number. One must know that Tang Jun did not have such a net worth in the past. It was a good way to make a fortune. This was only the price of a bottle of top-grade spirit refining pills, but to a cultivator in the late stage of Moon Jade realm, if they could use 20 or 30 bottles of these spirit pills in exchange for an opportunity to break through to the Sunshine realm, it would only cost 20 or 30 million spirit jades. 20 or 30 million spirit jades in exchange for an opportunity to break through to the Sunshine realm, who would not be willing? A moment later, Lu Yi was warmly sent off by Chao Xiang and left the Wanxiang Chamber of Commerce. Chao Xiang was undoubtedly very attentive to a guest like Lu Yi. Originally, he wanted to exchange a musical note imprint with Lu Yi. Next time, if Lu Yi had any good things, he could come to him. In the end, Lu Yi did not agree, which made Chao Xiang feel very regretful. However, Chao Xiang was already very satisfied with this deal, because he could also obtain some benefits from it. Lu Yi returned to the Three-World Island and found Hua Si and Shui Yuan, who had been waiting for him. He told them about the profits and gave them the spirit jades. Shui Yuan said, "It seems like it won't be too difficult for us to establish a foothold here, but this kind of business won't last long." Of course, all of this was based on the foundation of the pill gourd. Otherwise, with just her and Hua Si's alchemy skills, they might have suffered a loss. How could they make such a big profit? However, this was only temporary. When their cultivation improved and their skills became more proficient, it would not be a problem for them to make a living in the Wanxiang Sea with their own skills. Take Hua Qianying for example. With her alchemy skills, it would not be a problem for her to rely on the Wanxiang Chamber of Commerce. Lu Yi nodded and said, "Indeed." Like the previous deal, selling a few bottles occasionally was not a big problem. However, if they sold a large number of spirit pills over a long period of time, it would inevitably be suspicious. Hua Si said, "Maybe we can do this. There are many top forces in the Wanxiang Sea, so there's no need to sell all of them to the Wanxiang Chamber of Commerce. We can choose to sell them to other chambers of commerce. This way, every 3 to 5 months, we can go to the Wanxiang Chamber of Commerce and sell a few bottles. There won't be any problems." This was also a good idea. After pondering for a moment, Lu Yi said, "For the time being, we'll only sell the treasure body pills. See if you can research other spirit pills. Don't sell the spirit refining pills, we can use them ourselves in the future." Chapter 1634. Although the spirit refining pill was much more profitable than the treasure body pill and Lu Yi had a lot of spirit refining grass, there was nothing wrong with keeping such a good thing for later. It would not be too late to sell it when he needed it. The treasure body pill was not as profitable as the spirit refining pill, but the raw materials were easy to find. Lu Yi could get a lot of spirit fish by asking the mermaid gang for help. Therefore, Lu Yi felt that he should only sell some spirit pills that were easy to find. Even so, it could meet the needs of the Three Realms cultivators. After thinking for a while, Lu Yi said, "Although I'm not selling it, I still need to refine the spirit refining pill. There's no need to save materials." Because he had to train in the Blue Hall, he often needed to use things to nourish the soul. In the past, he used the spirit refining grass. Now that he could refine the spirit refining pill, it was more cost-effective. Moreover, even in the Constellation Mansion, one could take the spirit refining pill to strengthen one's soul. The strengthening of the soul was very beneficial to a cultivator. Therefore, even if he did not sell the spirit refining pill, he could not stop refining it. In any case, it did not take much effort to refine the spirit refining pill. He only needed to put in the corresponding raw materials. Moreover, the pills produced were all top-grade spirit pills without any impurities. After saying that, Lu Yi gave all the spirit refining grass and spirit fish to Hua Si and Shui Yuan. In any case, with them, he would not have to worry about not having enough spirit pills to eat in the future. He did not need to keep these materials with him. Shui Yuan and Hua Ci went to work again. Since they had decided to sell the treasure body pill to maintain their livelihood, they naturally had to start refining spirit pills in large quantities. Lu Yi stayed on the Three Realms Island for a day. When he was about to leave for the Constellation Mansion, he suddenly had a thought. Selling top-grade spirit pills was not a long-term business. That was because he could not find a suitable partner, so he could only refine some high-grade spirit pills and mix them in and sell them separately. But the Mermaid Clan, wasn't that a suitable partner? No matter what Lu Yi sold them, he did not need to worry about them. Moreover, the Mermaid Clan was rich. They owned such a large spirit jade vein and had lived there for many years. The wealth they had accumulated was probably beyond imagination. However, the Mermaid Clan did not use spirit jade vein, so they rarely mined the vein. Lu Yi also wanted to treat the mermaid race as an ally of the Three-World Island. If he could help them get rid of the curse, then the Three-World Island would have the support of an entire race. Even if someone came to attack, they wouldn't have to worry about not having enough strength to defend themselves. Selling some elixirs to his allies would increase their strength and strengthen the defenses of the Three-World Island. Killing two birds with one stone. Come to think of it, he still owed the Mare People clan a lot of spirit jades. When he left the 10,000 Elephant Sea, he was embarrassingly short of money, so he went to the Mare People clan to borrow some spirit jades. When he saw them again this time, they didn't ask him to pay them back. He could use spirit pills to repay his debt. Thinking of this, Lu Yi quickly found Shui Yuan and Hua Ci, who were refining spirit pills. In a day, even with the help of the pill gourds, the two women did not refine many spirit pills. The treasure body pills and spirit refining pills added together were only 100 pills. Lu Yi packed everything up and returned to his sleeping quarters. He took out the azure sea snail and blew into it. The door opened, and Zhang Xian stepped in. When he regained his senses, he was already standing in the Constellation Hall. "Young friend, you're here?" Miao Yen was standing to the side. Lu Yi nodded lightly, then looked into the distance. At this moment, Bai Lu and two other clansmen were sitting in a corner of the Constellation Hall. The energy fluctuations on their bodies were fluctuating. Lu Yi sensed a little, then said, "Congratulations, the noble clan has 3 more Yuyao." Bai Lu and the others had clearly succeeded in their breakthroughs. Currently, the energy fluctuations on their bodies were shockingly the fluctuations of their magic power. However, because they had just broken through, their cultivation bases were still unstable, and it was difficult for them to control their own power. This was why their energy fluctuations were so obvious. Miao Yen was clearly very happy. She smiled slightly and said, "I have to thank you for your help, young friend. The Temple of Gods does have the miraculous ability to help cultivators break through to the Yuyao realm. I originally thought that there would be some failures this time, but I didn't think that everything would go so smoothly." Miao Yin wasn't too worried about Bai Lu breaking through to the Yuyao realm. After all, she had accumulated enough energy. The other two clansmen were just a little weaker than Bai Lu, so Miao Yen had always been worried that they would fail. If they failed to break through, the consequences wouldn't be too good. This was because the process of breaking through to the Yuyao realm was a process where the spiritual power in a cultivator's body transformed into magic power. If this process passed, then everything would be fine. However, if they were stuck halfway through and the energy in their body became neither spiritual power nor magic power, then at best, their strength would be greatly reduced, and they would have no hope of reaching the eternal realm. At worst, the energy in their body would become chaotic, and they would die on the spot. However, her worries didn't come to fruition. Not to mention Bai Lu, even the other two clansmen, whose accumulations were slightly weaker, were able to break through without any setbacks. This was clearly the Temple of God's effect. Great Elder is too polite. I have a very close relationship with the noble clan, so this is just a small matter. In the future, if anyone in the noble clan wants to break through to the Yuyao realm, feel free to call me. Miao Yen expressed her gratitude. Then, in the future, we will have to trouble you. Young friend, please wait for a moment. I will call them. There's no need to rush. Lu Yi stopped her. Miao Yen looked at her suspiciously. Lu Yi muttered to herself, trying to think of where to start. In the end, she said, "Great Elder, I heard the princess mention the curse power in the noble clan's bloodline. It is because of this curse power that the noble clan can only live under the 10,000 Elephant Sea, unable to leave this special environment." Miao Yan's expression dimmed when she mentioned this. Back then, my ancestor offended a great expert, so he was inflicted with this curse power. It has been passed down for generations, and it has not changed. What happens when you leave the 10,000 Elephant Sea? Lu Yi asked. Miao Yen said, according to the ancient records of our ancestors, there were clansmen who once left the 10,000 Elephant Sea. However, not long after leaving the 10,000 Elephant Sea, they died from exhaustion. This wasn't the only case. In the first 1,000 years after they were inflicted with the curse, several clansmen left the 10,000 Elephant Sea. In the end, they all met the same ending. Not only was Xingxiu one of them, but even Yu Yao and Ri Zhao. Lu Yi was horrified. Even Ri Zhao couldn't resist the curse power? Who exactly did the Merfolk clan's ancestor offend back then? How could he have such a heaven-defying ability? Moreover, this curse was too poisonous. It forced the Merfolk clan to live under the 10,000 Elephant Sea like a star beast. Young friend, why are you suddenly bringing this up? Miao Yen asked. Lu Yi deliberated for a moment before saying, it's like this. I have a small method that might be able to help you solve this problem. When he saw Miao Yan's surprised and shocked expression, he hurriedly added, of course, it's only a possibility. I don't know if it'll work, so I have to give it a try. However, Great Elder, don't worry. Even if it doesn't work, at most they'll suffer some injuries. It won't be life-threatening. They'll recover after a little rest. Miao Yen became even more excited. Young friend, are you serious? It's only a possibility. Lu Yi reiterated with a serious expression. He didn't know if his talent tree would work or not, so how could he guarantee it? Thus, he didn't dare to speak too confidently, lest he disappoint Miao Yen. Miao Yen said excitedly, even if it's only a possibility, it's still necessary to give it a try. My clan has been waiting for this opportunity for too long. Although Miao Yen had long felt that Lu Yi was the person who could solve the problem plaguing her clan, she hadn't noticed any signs of Lu Ye's ability. She had thought that Lu Ye's strength wasn't enough. She wondered if he'd come up with something after advancing to the Ri Zhao realm. Who knew that Lu Yi would suddenly take the initiative to bring up this matter today? Even though she was at the late stage of the Moon Jade realm, Miao Yen couldn't suppress the excitement in her heart. Young friend, what do you want to do? How do you want my clan to cooperate? Miao Yen asked eagerly. Lu Yi muttered, if Great Elder doesn't mind, can I take a look at your body first? As soon as he said this, he suddenly realized that something was wrong and quickly changed his words. I want to see your bloodline. Miao Yen didn't realize Lu Ye's mistake and quickly nodded. Young friend, please do as you wish. She didn't know how to cooperate with Lu Yi. Lu Yi stepped forward and raised his hand. Great Elder, please give me your hand. Miao Yen stretched out her small, snow-white hand and placed it on Lu Ye's. Lu Yi warned, Great Elder, please don't use your Fa Li. It may be a little uncomfortable, so please bear with it. Saying so, he urged the power of the talent tree to enter Miao Yan's body through the contact between her palms. Miao Yen immediately frowned slightly because she felt a scorching power coming from Lu Yi. But strangely, although this power was scorching, it gave off a relatively gentle feeling, not violent at all. Moreover, this power seemed to be burning something in her body. Because she didn't resist and even suppressed the flow of Fa Li, Miao Yen felt some damage to her body even though the power was gentle. However, this damage was very slight and could be easily recovered with her cultivation, so she didn't need to worry too much about it. As the scorching power continued to burn, Miao Yan's expression changed. She could vaguely feel that something innate in her body was disappearing. As this strange feeling disappeared, her body and mind relaxed a little. She could even see some strange mist rising from her flesh and blood. It worked. She suddenly showed a look of pleasant surprise. Although she didn't know how Lu Yi did it or what kind of power he used, The strange mist was obviously the power of the curse hidden in her bloodline. At this moment, the power of the curse was being burned away, so she felt her body and mind relax, as if the invisible shackles that had been binding her were beginning to loosen. After a long while, Lu Yi withdrew his hand. Miao Yan looked at him with some dissatisfaction, obviously hoping that Lu Yi would continue. The reason Lu Yi stopped was because he didn't know if this would have any effect on Miao Yan. Unlike when he burned away the impurities that invaded his body, he could clearly see clues from the changes in the talent tree. Others couldn't see it directly, so they could only ask Miao Yan. Chapter 1635. If this method didn't work, then there was no need to continue. If it worked, then it wouldn't be too late to continue. However, when he met Yen Miao's bright eyes, Lu Yi knew he didn't have to ask. The talent tree's power could indeed resolve the curse. Young friend. Yen Miao opened his mouth, but was at a loss for words. He didn't know what to say. Although he was basically sure, Lu Yi couldn't help but ask, "Is it working?" Yen Miao nodded heavily, looking at Lu Yi with bright eyes. "I can feel that the curse's power in my body has decreased." Only decreased, it hadn't been completely destroyed. This was within his expectations. After all, time was a bit short. When he helped Luo Xie and the others destroy the dancer's power, it had taken some effort. The curse of the merfolk was even more difficult to deal with than the dancer's power. After all, it was passed down through the bloodline. How long does Great Elder estimate it will take to completely resolve the problem? Lu Yi asked. He asked this mainly because the Azure Sea Snail's door was about to open. If he didn't hurry back, the door would disappear. Yen Miao also realized this. He pondered for a moment and said, "I estimate it will take at least 4 hours. 4 hours? It definitely wouldn't be enough." Lu Yi frowned. In this situation, if he wanted to continue helping Yen Miao destroy the curse, there were only 2 choices. One was to go back first and come back when the Azure Sea Snail could be used again. However, under the premise that time was limited, they still couldn't resolve the problem in one go. They would have to come back a 3rd time, a 4th time. Even if they had a month, it wouldn't be enough. This was just Yen Miao. Although there weren't many merfolk, there were still quite a few of them. They couldn't keep using this method. Who knew how long that would take? If this choice didn't work, then he could only ignore the door and let it disappear. He would help Yen Miao completely resolve the problem here. Then he would swim out of the Wanxiang Sea. This was somewhat risky. Lu Yi had tried it before, but there were many terrifying star beasts in the sea, forcing him to give up halfway. However, it was different now. If Yen Miao escorted him, it wouldn't be a big problem. Soon, Lu Yi made a decision. He hoped that the mermaid clan would be the most reliable ally of the 3-world island in the future. If he could help the mermaid clan get rid of the curse, it would be greatly beneficial to the 3-world island. It was understandable that he would take some risks. "Let's continue," Lu Yi said, raising his hand. Miao Yan hesitated. "But young friend, this door should be disappearing soon." Lu Yi said, "Indeed, so I'll have to trouble Grand Elder to send me off later." Mistress Yen immediately understood and felt grateful. She nodded and said, "Don't worry, little friend. I will definitely send you out safely." Raising his hand, he placed it on Lu Ye's palm and closed his eyes, waiting excitedly for the changes that were about to happen to him. As time passed, Lu Yi constantly urged the power of the talent tree, carefully controlling it so as not to cause more damage to Miao Yan. A moment later, the Azure Sea Snail's door disappeared without Lu Yi noticing. Since he had already decided to let Miao Yan escort him, he didn't need to care about whether the door was still there or not. Yen Miao's estimation wasn't too far off. About 4 hours later, she suddenly opened her eyes. Her eyes were sparkling. Even though the talent tree's power had been incinerated, causing some injuries to her body, the feeling of her body and mind suddenly relaxing made her understand that the power of the curse in her body had completely disappeared. It was an indescribable feeling. It was as if she had always been carrying a shackle to survive, but because she had always been carrying it, she hadn't been able to sense it. It was only now that the shackle had suddenly disappeared that she suddenly felt the difference. Lu Yi noticed her movements and opened his eyes to look at her. Seeing this, he knew that everything was fine. He stopped urging the talent tree's power and asked, "Does Grand Elder feel uncomfortable anywhere?" Yes, the injuries to her body were indeed uncomfortable. No matter how gentle the talent tree's power was, it couldn't be harmless to her. However, compared to her current relaxed state, this kind of injury was completely negligible. Miao Yan's eyes were slightly red, as if she wanted to cry. This was because there really was a solution to the problem that had plagued their race for countless years in her generation. Moreover, this was the first time she had personally experienced it. She bent her knees slightly and bowed to Lu Yi in an extremely solemn manner. "Thank you, young friend. Miao Yan will never forget this kindness. The Merfolk clan will never forget this kindness." Lu Yi hurriedly raised his hand to support her. "You're too polite, Grand Elder." These words sounded a little familiar. Back when he returned to Apeiron after the great battle with the vampires of the insectoids, those Rizhao said the same thing. He thought for a moment and said, "Grand Elder, are you sure that the curse in your body has disappeared?" Miao Yan nodded. "Although there's no direct evidence, I can basically confirm it. If you want to verify it, you'll have to try it out." In any case, they had to escort Lu Yi out of the Wanxiang Sea. Miao Yan immediately decided that she would also leave the Wanxiang Sea when the time came and see the situation. If there were no more tragic endings like her ancestors' bloodlines, there was no doubt that Lu Ye's method had worked. Lu Yi immediately understood her thoughts and couldn't help but say, "Grand Elder, why don't you find another member of the clan? We should be more cautious about this kind of thing." Miao Yan was the Grand Elder of the Merfolk clan after all. The Merfolk queen was still young, so it could be said that Miao Yan was the de facto leader of the Merfolk clan. If something happened to Miao Yan, then the friendship between the Merfolk clan and the Merfolk clan would probably be ruined. Regardless of whether it was for public or private reasons, Lu Yi didn't want Miao Yan to try it out herself. Even if something happened to another member of the clan, the impact wouldn't be too great. However, Miao Yan shook her head and said, "There are some things that I have to personally experience to know the details of. Moreover, no one in the clan is stronger than me. If something happens, I can return to the Wanxiang Sea immediately. Young friend, you don't have to worry too much." Since she was so insistent, Lu Yi couldn't dissuade her. "I'll recover a bit first. Young friend, please wait for a moment." Miao Yan walked to the side and sat down cross-legged. She took out a recovery pill that Lu Yi had given her and swallowed it. Lu Yi originally wanted to discuss the matter of the recovery pill with her, but he could only endure it. In any case, he was already here. There would be plenty of opportunities to turn back. There was no need to rush. Bai Lu walked over. She had seen what Lu Yi and the Grand Elder were doing just now. She had also heard their conversation. She was secretly excited. She didn't think that the problem of the Merfolk clan's curse would really be solved just like that. Although the Grand Elder still had to personally verify it, it was still a very big hope. Bai Lu walked up to Lu Yi and expressed her thanks with a solemn expression. The two of them chatted for a while. Lu Yi asked her about how she felt about breaking through to Yu Yao here, as well as the details of the process. He wasn't far from Yu Yao. Sooner or later he would take this step. Thus, there was no harm in understanding it in advance. Moreover, Lu Yi wanted to know if his previous thoughts were correct. After listening to Bai Lu's detailed explanation, Lu Yi realized that his thoughts were correct. He didn't need the help of the Constellation Hall or any other treasures to break through to Yu Yao. This was because Bai Lu said that the main function of the Constellation Hall was to help a cultivator purify the spiritual power in their body. This way, the higher the purity of the spiritual power, the easier it would be to convert it into magic power. Naturally, the process of breaking through would be easier. Furthermore, the higher the purity of the spiritual power, the higher the starting point of breaking through to Yu Yao. This was because the magic power converted from spiritual power would be stronger. There was a difference in strength between Yu Yao who had just broken through to Yu Yao. The problem lay in the might of their magic power. The root of this difference was the purity of their constellation realm's spiritual power. Lu Ye's spiritual power didn't have the slightest bit of impurity ever since he started cultivating. There was no need to purify it. Thus, he really didn't need the help of the Constellation Hall to break through to Yu Yao. Although he didn't need the help of the Constellation Hall, he still needed to find a suitable cultivation art to use during the process of breaking through to Yu Yao. During the process of converting spiritual power into magic power, if a cultivator relied on their own efforts, it would take twice the effort for half the result. Thus, a long time ago, there were cultivators who researched cultivation arts specifically used during this process. These cultivation arts could help a cultivator convert their spiritual power. This type of cultivation art was useless during normal times. It was specifically used during the process of breaking through to Yu Yao. Thus, cultivators jokingly called it the Dragon Gate cultivation art. The Dragon Gate cultivation art was a general term. In the entire starry sky, there were countless Dragon Gate cultivation arts. Every race and every force had their own Dragon Gate cultivation art. They were neither good nor bad. Although there wasn't much of a difference between good and bad, for cultivators, there was a difference between suitable and unsuitable. What cultivators needed to do was find a Dragon Gate cultivation art that was suitable for them. The myriad elephant trading firms sold this item, so Lu Yi had never been in a hurry. Moreover, Lu Yi had many Yu Yao by his side. Every Yu Yao had passed through this stage, and they had also grasped many Dragon Gate arts. When the time came, all he needed to do was ask around and find a suitable one. This was one of the benefits of connecting to the starry sky. If the 9 provinces remained stagnant, even if the constellation halls cultivated to a level where they could break through to Yu Yao, they would only spend more time and effort to break through to Yu Yao. Lu Yi took the opportunity to ask Bai Lu about the Mermaid Clan's Dragon Gate cultivation art. Bai Lu didn't hide anything and directly said that the Mermaid Clan had more than a dozen Dragon Gate cultivation arts. She would engrave them and give them to Lu Yi later. Lu Yi thanked her. Not long after, Yan Miao recovered. She was a late-stage Yu Yao cultivator. Even if she wasn't a body cultivator, her physique was no joke. Her previous injuries weren't serious, so she naturally didn't need much time. Lu Yi reached out and pushed open the doors of the Constellation Hall. Several people filed out. After everyone left, the doors of the Constellation Hall slammed shut. Bai Lu took out the golden conch that could repel seawater and create a vacuum space. She blew on it, and the surrounding seawater immediately dispersed. Lu Yi nodded inwardly. When he traveled with Yan Miao later, he had to ask her to bring this golden conch along just in case. He didn't want to use up too much fuel for his talent tree. If that happened, he would be in a dilemma in the myriad elephant sea. Chapter 1636. The group returned to the Emperor's Snail Palace peacefully. Lu Yi was arranged to stay in the room he stayed in last time. Yan Miao was determined to personally verify it while escorting Lu Yi away. Naturally, there were a lot of things to be prepared and instructed. There would be a lot of resistance. The other elders were probably unwilling to let her take this risk, but if Yan Miao made a decision, no one could stop her. They couldn't imprison her. She was the great elder and was the strongest. The other mermaids were no match for her. Bai Lu came over and handed over the Dragon Gate art to Lu Yi. She did things swiftly and decisively, without any hesitation. Bai Shuang, the queen of the merfolk, also came with her. The little girl looked the same as Lu Yi had seen before. Lu Yi had asked why the queen of the mermaid clan was Bai Shuang and not Bai Lu or Yan Miao. Bai Lu explained that the mermaid clan valued bloodline inheritance. Bai Shuang had inherited some special bloodline from the previous queen, but Bai Lu didn't, so the queen could only be Bai Shuang. Unfortunately, Bai Shuang was too young and not very strong. When she grew up in the future, her potential would surpass all of her clan members. In history, only the queen of the mermaid clan had the hope of being promoted to sunshine. Since ancient times, no other mermaid had been promoted to sunshine except for the queen. Ever since Lu Yi helped her inscribe a tattoo, the little girl had a good impression of Lu Yi. Now that she heard from Bai Lu that Lu Yi had the ability to resolve the curse, she was even more interested. While Lu Yi and Bai Lu were chatting, Bai Shuang sat quietly on the side like a porcelain doll. "How is Ghost?" Lu Yi suddenly asked. "Senior sister Ghost is doing well. She has been working hard on her cultivation recently," Bai Lu said. "Take me to see her." Lu Yi didn't want to find trouble with Ghost, but he wanted to get the other Dragon Gate tactics from her. He needed them, and the cultivators of the 9 regions also needed them. There was no harm in collecting more. Bai Lu said, "Then don't bully her." Lu Yi raised his eyebrows. "Did she say something bad about me in front of you?" Ghost was a woman who would gossip behind someone's back. Bai Lu pursed her lips and smiled. He didn't say anything. Clearly, he had said something and quite a lot. When Lu Yi saw Ghost again, she was sitting on a fragrant bed with a pink curtain. This should be Bai Lu's boudoir. With her back to the crowd, Ghost's voice was sweet. "Xiaolu, come and cultivate quickly. I've been waiting for you for many days." She smiled and turned her head expectantly, only to see an annoying face. Her smile disappeared, as if she had seen a pile of dog shit. "Why are you here?" Lu Yi frowned and looked at her, then at the bed, and Xiaolu? From the looks of it, Ghost and Bai Lu were getting along well recently. They were even using such intimate terms. "Do you have the Dragon Gate formula?" Lu Yi went straight to the point. He couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with her. "Yes." Ghost replied instinctively. "Give it to me." Lu Yi stretched out his hand. Ghost was stunned for a moment. She didn't understand why Lu Yi was acting so matter-of-factly. Soon she flew into a rage. "You want this and that? I asked you to marry me, but you won't. Who do you think I am?" Back then, Lu Yi had tried to see the ghostly patterns on her body. Now, he didn't even let go of her Dragon Gate formula. This was too much. "Marry?" Bai Lu's eyes widened. She had long known that Ghost and Lu Yi didn't get along well because Ghost often said bad things about Lu Yi to her. According to Ghost's description, Lu Yi was her lifelong enemy. Now, he actually took the initiative to ask her to marry him? Had senior sister Ghost always been a person who didn't mean what she said? Bai Shuang stood next to Bai Lu. Her eyes were also wide open. Her calm eyes were overflowing with excitement, as if she had seen something amazing. Sure enough, the people outside were very interesting, unlike the merfolk, who were all lifeless. Lu Yi thought for a moment and said, "Of course I treat you as a friend." Ghost snorted and stared at Lu Yi. "Do you believe that yourself?" Lu Yi looked back at her calmly, her eyes full of sincerity. If she hadn't recalled how Lu Yi had treated her before, Ghost would have believed her. Although she didn't want to do as Lu Yi wished, she had no choice but to bow her head under the eaves. Ghost didn't dare to offend Lu Yi, lest she was left alone here. She liked cultivating here because she had never cultivated here before. It made her feel that there was hope in the sunshine. However, she couldn't stay here forever. She still had to ask Lu Yi for help. She angrily took out a few jade slips and threw them to Lu Yi as if they were trash. "It's all here." Lu Yi took them and put them away. Then, she turned to Bai Lu and said, "I'll be leaving first." Bai Lu nodded. After Lu Yi left, Ghost's angry voice came from behind. "Will it kill you to thank me? How rude." The next day, Miao Yen came looking for her with an excited expression. "Young friend, I'm ready. Let's go." She couldn't wait to go out to sea to test it. Lu Yi had no problem with that. When the two of them walked out together, Lu Yi found that there were many people standing outside. Several elders of the mermaid clan, Bai Lu, and Bai Shuang were here. They all looked serious. Miao Yan's experiment was too dangerous. They couldn't help but worry. If something happened, the mermaid clan would lose their strongest combat power. However, the elders had obviously tried to stop her. Since Miao Yan was determined, how could they stop her? Just as Miao Yan said, some things had to be experienced to know the situation. Don't make such sad faces. This trip won't be too big of a problem. I know the situation in my body better than any of you. The power of the curse should have been completely removed. You all just wait in the palace. Once there is a result, I will inform you immediately. The second elder couldn't help but say, "Great elder, let's reconsider this matter." Yen Miao shook his head. "My clan has been waiting for this day for far too long. As this generation's great elder, I hope that I can be the first clan member to leave the 10,000 Elephant Sea. This can be considered a bit of selfishness on my part." When the mermaids heard this, they couldn't stop her. They could only say some auspicious words and hope that this trip would go smoothly. A moment later, Miao Yen and Lu Yi set out under everyone's gazes. This was the depths of the Wanxiang Sea. If they wanted to go out to sea, it would take at least a month. Moreover, this was under the premise that they found the right direction. If they went in the wrong direction, it might take several months. Lu Yi didn't know which direction to go, so she could only choose one at random. He wouldn't waste time because he was going to cultivate in the Wanxiang Sea anyway. Traveling like this was actually also a form of cultivation. However, he would occasionally pay attention to the changes in the fuel of the talent tree. If he found anything wrong, he would ask Miao Yen to activate the power of the golden conch that could repel seawater. Under the 10,000 Elephant Sea, even Yen Miao could not use his magic power to carry Lu Yi forward. Therefore, both of them rode on a seahorse star beast. This thing's speed was very fast under the 10,000 Elephant Sea, and it was not any slower than the cultivators flying in the sky. Along the way, Lu Yi finally had time to discuss the second matter of this trip with Miao Yen. He didn't have time to talk about it when he was in the Constellation Hall. Grand Elder, I borrowed some spiritual jades from your clan last time. I'm afraid I can't repay them for the time being. Miao Yen smiled and said, these spiritual jades are nothing. If you want, I can tell them to mine more for you. Our mermaid clan doesn't need that much. Lu Yi said, if I were alone, I would accept Great Elder's good intentions. However, I have a group of clansmen under me who need spiritual jades for cultivation. Therefore, I would like to strike a deal with your noble clan. Miao Yen said, that's no problem. What do you want to trade? Spirit pills. We can only refine spirit pills now. Lu Yi said as he asked Miao Yen to take out the golden conch. He activated its power to create a vacuum and handed over the spirit pills he brought before. Please take a look, Grand Elder. Lu Yi had actually made a deal with the mermaid clan before, but at that time, everyone had a tacit understanding and didn't mention it. Now, if he wanted to cooperate for a long time, he had to make things clear. Spirit pills were indeed something the mermaid clan liked. Because the mermaid clan couldn't refine them, they had basically used up all the spirit pills Lu Yi brought before. Therefore, if Lu Yi wanted to use spirit pills to make a deal with the mermaid clan, Miao Yen would welcome it. Miao Yen took the jade bottle Lu Yi handed over and examined it. Unfortunately, although her cultivation was high, she didn't know much about spirit pills. Even so, under the premise of comparison, she was able to find some problems. Little friend, the quality of these spirit pills seems to be much better than the ones you brought before? Lu Yi immediately began to educate her about the quality of spirit pills. Only then did Miao Yen realize that there were so many things to pay attention to. After hearing Lu Yi say that these spirit pills were all top grade, Miao Yen was undoubtedly very surprised. Lu Yi also said that top-grade spirit pills had no impurities and could be taken by any cultivator without any hidden dangers. They were good things that could only be found by chance. Even if a skilled alchemist wanted to refine top-grade spirit pills, they had to rely on luck. However, these top-grade spirit pills brought by Lu Yi couldn't be explained by good or bad luck. It's like this. I have a treasure that can assist in alchemy, so the number of top-grade spirit pills produced is relatively large. This is a treasure body pill, it can strengthen one's physique. Miao Yan's eyes lit up. Good stuff. The mermaid clan's cultivation direction was mainly to strengthen their physique. Because it was difficult for them to use spells when fighting against those star beasts under the sea, they could only fight in close quarters. This treasure body pill was undoubtedly very useful to the mermaid clan. Miao Yen soon found another kind of spirit pill. After carefully examining it, her expression suddenly changed. Little friend, what kind of spirit pill is this? She vaguely felt that this thing would be very useful to her. Seeing her expression, Lu Yi knew that Miao Yen had sensed something. She said, this is a spirit refining pill, it can temper the divine soul and strengthen the soul. Chapter 1637. Can I have one? Yen Miao asked. Of course. Lu Yi nodded. Although a top-grade soul-refining pill was expensive, if they wanted to reach a long-term deal with the mermaid clan, they naturally had to let the other party clearly understand the magical effects of this pill. The best way to do this was to directly take one. Yen Miao stuffed a soul-refining pill into her mouth. Although she had vaguely sensed that this pill would be of great use to her when she smelled its fragrance, Yen Miao was still greatly shocked as she slowly refined the pill. This was because she could clearly feel that as the pill took effect, her soul was nourished by a gentle force. For a moment, her eyes turned red. Lu Yi was stunned. Why did she almost cry after eating a soul-refining pill? Even if the effects of a top-grade soul-refining pill were outstanding, it shouldn't cause such a big reaction. I've made a fool of myself in front of little friend. After a long while, Yen Miao finally calmed down. The soul-refining pill's effects were still slowly taking effect in her body. Looking at the situation, it probably wouldn't be a problem to maintain it for a few days. During these few days, her soul would be able to thrive under the miraculous nourishment. Because of her slight loss of self-control, her expression was a little embarrassed. She couldn't help but want to explain, so she asked, "Little friend, do you know why only the queen's bloodline in our clan can be promoted to sunshine?" Lu Yi casually asked, "Is it because of the curse?" It wasn't that he knew beforehand, but this was the only possibility. Yen Miao nodded. "It is indeed because of the curse. That strange curse not only forced us to live in the cold and dark 10,000 Elephant Sea, but also limited the growth of most of our clansmen, making it impossible for our clansmen to ever see the door to sunshine. Only the queen's bloodline is relatively strong, so the restrictions are better than the ordinary clansmen. But even so, the queen's bloodline only has hope of being promoted to sunshine. Not every generation of queen is sunshine. In other words, Bai Shuang may be promoted to sunshine in the future, but she may only be Yu Yao. A few days ago, little friend, you helped me to dissolve the power of the curse. At that time, I felt that something had changed. I thought that maybe I could try to pry into the mystery of sunshine, but because this kind of thing has never happened before in my clan, I can't be sure." Lu Yan was enlightened. So that's why the Great Elder insisted on going out to see personally to verify whether the power of the curse has disappeared, and at the same time, to verify the matter of the promotion of sunshine? Miao Yen nodded and looked at Lu Yi cheerfully. "There's no need to test it now. I'm sure that I can pry into the secrets of sunshine. Because after swallowing the spirit-refining pill, I clearly have some feelings that I have never had before." In terms of accumulation, Yen Miao had long since reached Yu Yao's peak. Unfortunately, she had been restricted by the power of the curse in the past, so she hadn't been able to feel Yu Yao's sunlight at all. But as she consumed the spirit-refining pill, she had a strange feeling. In the past, it was as if she was locked in a sealed house. This house had a secret door. As long as she opened the secret door, she would be able to see through the secret of the sunshine. However, even though she knew that there was a secret door in the house, she still did not know where it was. But now, it was different. When the power of the curse was resolved, she vaguely sensed the location of the secret door, and with the consumption of a top-grade soul-refining pill, the secret door even opened a small crack, and a faint bright light shone in from the crack of the door, allowing her to see the hope of going one step further. Otherwise, how could a late-stage Yu Yao like her be so emotional after swallowing a spirit-refining pill? The spirit-refining pill was only the catalyst. The result was the real reason why she could not control herself. If this was the case, then the power of the curse in Yen Miao's body had indeed been completely dispelled. Otherwise, she would not have such a feeling. "Little friend, this spirit-refining pill is very useful to me. I want to buy some," Yen Miao said seriously. She had a feeling that with the help of this pill, she would be able to advance to sunshine even faster. Lu Yi had long known that the spirit-refining pill was very attractive to Yu Yao like Yen Miao. After all, at this realm, if one wanted to advance to sunshine, they would have to work hard on their essence, energy, and spirit. The spirit-refining pill was undoubtedly a very suitable spirit-refining pill. Since Yen Miao had such a request, Lu Yi naturally would not refuse. However, since they were doing business, there were some things that needed to be said first. Even blood-related brothers had to settle accounts clearly, let alone two different races. Even if Lu Yi had already decided that the Mare People clan would be Three World Islands' future allies, he could not be careless about this matter. In fact, he had to be more explicit about it. "No problem, but the price of this pill is a little high." Yen Miao smiled. "It doesn't matter if it's expensive. Our Mare People clan does not have many things, but we do have a lot of spirit jades." These words were very capricious. However, she did have the capital to be capricious. Lu Yi immediately informed her of the price of the body refining pill and spirit refining pill. He did not ask for too much, just the price that Chao Xiang of the Myriad Elephant Chamber of Commerce had previously quoted. This price was undoubtedly very fair. More importantly, even if one took out the same amount of spirit jades on the Myriad Elephant Sea, they might not necessarily be able to buy these top-grade spirit pills. Thus, Lu Yi did not ask for too much, but in reality, the Mare People clan had gained a bargain. This way, the top-grade spirit pills refined by Shui Yuan and Hua Ci would not have to worry about a lack of demand. Lu Yi could not sell these top-grade spirit pills to outsiders, but selling them to the Mare People clan would not be a problem. The cooperation between the two sides could be considered a win-win situation. Furthermore, Shui Yuan and Hua Ci would not have to waste their time refining top-grade spirit pills in the future. They would refine top-grade spirit pills to avoid wasting materials. The Mare People clan would be able to supply as many as they wanted. In the short term, the cultivators of the three-world island would not have to worry about the demand for spirit jades. After handing over all the spirit pills he had brought to Yen Miao, the two of them continued on their journey. The Myriad Elephant Sea was not peaceful. Occasionally, there would be terrifying spirit beasts roaming about. Even though Yen Miao's cultivation was extraordinary, she was unwilling to fight enemies in such an environment. Thus, when they occasionally encountered spirit fish star beasts that harbored ill intentions, Yen Miao would blow a conch shell to scare them away. A long time ago, Lu Yi had witnessed the power of this conch shell in Yen Miao's hands. Its function should be the complete opposite of his bone sun. The bone sun could attract nearby star beasts, but the conch shell could drive them away. It was very mysterious. According to Yen Miao, the power of her conch shell could even drive away ordinary sunlight star beasts. In the past, when a sunlight star beast invaded the Mare People clan's territory, she had used this conch to drive it away. Moreover, there were not many sunlight star beasts in the Myriad Elephant Sea. In addition, the Myriad Elephant Sea was unparalleled. As long as one's luck was not too bad, they would not encounter them. However, sometimes what one feared would come true. Half a month after setting off from the Mare People clan's territory, Lu Yi and Yen Miao were riding on their seahorses. Suddenly, a brilliant aura swept toward them from not far away. Yen Miao and Lu Yi were shocked. They did not need to investigate to know that it was a sunlight star beast. They looked at each other and restrained their auras. Even though they had the conch shell, they still had to conceal their auras. However, what made them depressed was that the sunlight star beast did not change its direction even though they had restrained their auras. Yen Miao hurriedly gestured to Lu Yi. At the same time, she patted the seahorse beneath her. The two seahorses immediately carried the two of them to the side. The two of them had restrained their auras, but the same could not be said for the two seahorse mounts. However, under normal circumstances, a sunlight star beast would not be interested in a nebula-class seahorse. It was just like how Lu Yi was not interested in a deity ocean beast. The difference in strength between them was too great. However, Yen Miao's heart sank. When the two seahorses changed direction, the sunlight star beast did the same. Yen Miao immediately realized that things were not looking good. This was probably a sunlight star beast looking for food. Otherwise, it would not have gone after the two constellation seahorses. At this point, even if she abandoned the seahorses, it would be useless. The moment she revealed Yu Yao's aura, the sunlight star beast would definitely target her. Yen Miao's figure flashed as she mounted her seahorse and blocked Lu Ye's path. She took out her conch shell, stared ahead, and blew into it. She was very confident in her conch shell's power. After all, she had used it to chase away a sunlight star beast before. The low sound of her conch shell rang out. As expected, the sunlight star beast was affected. It suddenly stopped in front of them, hesitating to move forward. Yen Miao continued blowing into her conch shell, her gaze fixed in that direction. Roar! An angry roar came from the other side. It was full of irritation. Along with the roar came Rizhao's terrifying aura. It almost condensed into a solid form, causing the seawater to churn. Even though the two seahorses desperately tried to stabilize their bodies, they were still swept away. Yen Miao's expression changed slightly. She realized that this Sunlight Star Beast was different from the one she had chased away before. Back then, the Sunlight Star Beast that had invaded the merfolk's territory immediately fled as soon as she blew her conch shell, as if it had encountered its natural enemy. However, even though this Sunlight Star Beast's roar was violent, it did not retreat immediately. Instead, its aura became even more dangerous. My conch shell won't be useless against this star beast, right? Yen Miao's heart began to beat faster. There was nowhere to hide here. If the conch shell's might was useless, then she and Lu Yi would be in danger. The low sound of the conch shell did not stop for even a moment. The Sunlight Star Beast's roar was also continuous. It seemed to have sensed the danger ahead and hesitated to move forward. For a moment, the situation was in a deadlock. Lu Yi rode his seahorse and hid behind Smoky Meow. He tried his best to see what was going on, but the water was blocking his view. He couldn't see what the Solar Star Beast looked like, even though it wasn't that far away. But judging from the current situation and Smoky Meow's expression, things didn't look good. Sure enough, the 10,000 Elephant Sea was full of dangers. It was not a place where one could wander freely. The first time he came here, he had thought of swimming out of the 10,000 Elephant Sea. However, he encountered a Sunlight Star Beast halfway and was forced to return to the Constellation Hall. This time, he encountered it again. Wasn't there supposed to be a lot of Sunlight Star Beasts in the 10,000 Elephant Sea? Why was he always encountering them? In fact, there were not many Sunlight Star Beasts in the 10,000 Elephant Sea. However, he and Yen Miao had been swimming here for half a month. If they walked at night too often, they would eventually encounter ghosts. End of chapter. Chapter 1638. In the depths of the 10,000 Elephant Sea, the sound of the conch continued, mixed with the angry roars of the Sunshine Star Beast. Lu Yi hid behind Yen Miao, frowning. The situation was not good. Yen Miao's conch was indeed powerful. Even the Sunshine Star Beast stopped in its tracks. However, if they could not drive the Sunshine Star Beast away, both he and Yen Miao might die here. He had to think of a way. While he was thinking, Yen Miao's voice suddenly rang in his ears. "Young friend, you go first." Lu Yi frowned. "What about you, Grand Elder?" "Don't worry, I have a way to escape," Yen Miao replied. Of course, Lu Yi did not believe her. How could Yu Yao escape when she was up against the Sunshine Star Beast? Yen Miao wanted him to go first because she wanted to stall for time and ensure his safety. Otherwise, they would all suffer together. Moreover, Lu Yi could see that although Yen Miao's conch was mysterious, it consumed a lot of her power. This was because when Yen Miao blew the conch, her transcendence energy was frantically pouring into the conch. Judging from the situation, Yen Miao would not be able to hold on for long. As the two of them conversed, a sudden change occurred. An even louder roar came from the front. Then, the Sunshine Star Beast, which had been hesitating, rapidly approached them. It seemed to be completely enraged. Yen Miao's expression changed drastically. She hurriedly shouted, "Young friend, run." As she spoke, her figure flashed and she leaped onto the seahorse. Lu Yi vaguely heard a murmur. The next moment, Yen Miao's already powerful aura skyrocketed. Even her body emitted a dazzling golden light. Although Smoky Meow usually had the appearance of a gentle and beautiful woman, in fact, every mermaid was an expert in close combat with the enemy. They were natural body cultivators. Because there were no suitable weapons under the sea, the weapons they trusted the most were their fists. Of course, there were also mermaids who would grind the bones of some star beasts into sharp weapons, but such sharp weapons were completely unrelated to real treasures. The Queen's scepter was the only true magic weapon in the entire mermaid clan. It was the symbol of the mermaid clan's supreme power, and it was also a powerful magic weapon. Yen Miao's aura was so powerful that Lu Yi couldn't even look at her directly. Compared to the late-stage Moon Yao from Kong Cheng's star systems, Yen Miao was far stronger. Even Luan Xiao couldn't compare to her. Even so, when compared to the aura of the sun, it was still like the light of a firefly compared to the bright moon. Miao Yen had just started to move when the other side had already arrived in front of him. Lu Yi finally saw what the astral beast looked like. It was a huge fish with a huge head and a flat body. Its body wasn't even as long as its head. At this moment, it opened its bloody mouth, revealing its fangs. Its eyes were scarlet. In the blink of an eye, it arrived in front of Miao Yen and bit him. Yen Miao's movements were very fast. She wanted to dodge, but at that moment, an invisible force bound her. It was obvious that the solar star beast had secretly done something. She hurriedly broke free from the bindings, but it was too late for her to dodge. Half of her body was in the strange fish's mouth. Her skin could clearly feel the sharpness and toughness of the other side's fangs. Miao Yan's face paled. She felt that the heavens were unfair. It hadn't been easy for her to see the light of hope, but now she was going to die here. Before she could finish her thoughts, a dazzling golden light suddenly shot from the side and hit the strange fish's body. Miao Yen, who was already waiting for death, was pleasantly surprised to find that the strange fish's fangs didn't show any signs of closing. It was as if it was frozen. She instinctively dodged to the side and looked over. She was shocked. That was because the strange fish's body was glowing with a golden light. It was completely motionless, as if it was really frozen in time. A Sunshine Realm strange fish like this couldn't have become like this for no reason. Miao Yen suddenly remembered that before the strange fish changed, a golden light had shot from the side. That was in the direction of Lu Yi. Could it be Li Taibai's doing? With that thought in mind, she hurriedly turned her head and saw Lu Yi riding a shivering seahorse. He was holding a simple coin in his hand with an excited expression. Lu Yi was indeed very excited. Although he had made the treasure coin swallow a large amount of seawater and turn it into money, he speculated that this thing might be able to affect the Sunshine Realm. However, he didn't have a target to test it on, so he couldn't make an accurate judgment. This was also the reason why he didn't take out the money just now. If it didn't work, it would anger the other side. But since the strange fish attacked first, Lu Yi couldn't care less. He could only take out the treasure coin. If it worked, that would be the best. If it didn't, then he would have to escape immediately. As for whether he could escape or not, that would depend on the will of the heavens. Fortunately, the treasure money was useful. After being hit by the treasure coin's golden light, the strange fish was immediately covered in a layer of gold and froze in place. After the treasure coin in his hand released the golden light, it returned to its previous dull and simple appearance. However, it quickly began to swallow seawater and turned silver in the blink of an eye. When Lu Yi raised his head again, he found that the strange fish's power was surging wildly. As its power surged, the golden light covering its body was rapidly dimming. Lu Yi was shocked. He realized that the treasure coin's power was disappearing. It seemed that the treasure coin was useful to the Sunshine Realm, but it couldn't be maintained for a long time. "Great Elder, quickly do it!" Lu Yi hurriedly shouted, reminding Miao Yen, who was still in a daze. Miao Yen was shocked. It was already incredible that her conch could drive away the Sunshine Realm star beast. She didn't expect Lu Yi to have an even more powerful item. With just one attack, it could freeze a Sunshine Realm star beast. Hearing Lu Ye's shout, Miao Yen finally came back to his senses. When he saw the strange fish's situation, he knew that it would be too late if he didn't act now. He hurriedly appeared on top of the strange fish's head and began to chant again. At the same time, his aura skyrocketed. At the same time, a golden light appeared on his fist and he smashed it down. With a loud bang, the strange fish was smashed and rolled in the sea. Yen Miao was like a shadow. His fists and feet turned into violent sharp weapons. His whole person left behind afterimages as he bombarded the strange fish indiscriminately. With Yu Yao's cultivation at the peak of the late Yu Yao stage, such violent attacks could even shatter a star. However, the strange fish was obviously not affected. Although it was tumbling in the sea like a sandbag, its physique was unimaginably strong. Even with Miao Yan's fierce attacks, it only left a few subtle wounds on the surface of its body. In less than a dozen breaths of time, the golden light on the strange fish's body had dimmed to the extreme. Even though the strange fish was being beaten, its eyes were still glowing fiercely. It glared at Miao Yen, who was dancing around it, as if saying that it would teach her a lesson soon. Yen Miao despaired. Her current situation was similar to Lu Ye's battle against the late-stage Yu Yao of the Blood Tribe. Even though she had the absolute advantage, she lacked the means to pose a fatal threat to the enemy. This was very awkward. Seeing that the golden light on the strange fish's body was about to disappear, Miao Yen steeled her heart and was about to use a forbidden technique. This forbidden technique would burn all of her vitality. She was confident that no matter how strong the other party's physique was, it would still cause great damage. However, once this forbidden technique was used, she would either die on the spot. Even if she managed to survive, she could forget about advancing to the Sunshine Realm in the future. Lu Ye's shout reached her ears, "Great Elder, get out of the way!" Miao Yen instinctively dodged to the side. Almost at the same time, a familiar golden light shot out from Lu Ye's side and struck the frozen strange fish. In an instant, the golden light spread out. The golden light on the strange fish's body, which was about to disappear, shone brightly once again. The strange fish undoubtedly had a certain level of intelligence. Its blood-red eyes, which were originally looking at Miao Yen as if she was a dead person, widened and became extremely stunned. It couldn't understand what was going on. It clearly felt that it was about to break free from the shackles, so why did the shackles suddenly deepen? Not far away, Lu Yi lowered his head and stared at the treasure coin in his hand. He almost couldn't help but laugh at the sky. "I'm rich. With this treasure coin in hand, wouldn't the mere Wanxiang Sea be like my own backyard? I could come and go as I please." It could be said that in a special environment like the Wanxiang Sea, with this treasure coin, one would be invincible. The strange fish indeed had the ability to break free from the treasure coin's golden light, but so what? Under the cover of the seawater, the treasure coin's power recovered very quickly. Before it could completely break free, the treasure coin could unleash its power again. Miao Yen was obviously aware of this. She originally planned to use the forbidden technique, but now it seemed that there was no need for it. This was really a chance at life in a hopeless situation. She immediately leapt towards the strange fish with joy. This time, the strange fish didn't dare to look at her with any contempt. Although Miao Yen hadn't caused much damage to it, she had indeed injured it a little. If it couldn't break free from the shackles, it would really be beaten to death. No matter how strong its physique was, it wasn't to the extent that a late-stage Yu Yao couldn't hurt it. It just needed some time. "First Elder, use this." Lu Yi shouted as he tossed his mountain blade over to the elder. He could also see that Miao Yen was in an awkward position, so he naturally didn't mind lending her a little help. The mountain blade didn't have any special features other than its sharpness. In the hands of a late-stage Yu Yao like Miao Yen, its power would definitely be greater than in his hands. Moreover, it had a strange power that could prevent the enemy's wounds from healing. It was perfect for the weak to fight against the strong. Lu Yi could kill a cultivator like Bai Jin, so there was no reason that Miao Yen couldn't kill this strange fish. Miao Yen took the mountain blade and held it with both hands. She poured her magic power into it and slashed down fiercely. She didn't know the difference between a spiritual artifact and a magic artifact. Otherwise, she wouldn't have dared to do this. If a spiritual artifact was infused with magic power, it was very likely that it would suffer irreparable damage. In addition, she was a late-stage Yu Yao. If this blade had been the mountain blade of the past, it might have even been broken. Fortunately, the mountain blade was no longer the mountain blade of the past. It was transformed from the soldier tribe's puppet, so it was far more powerful than a spiritual artifact. End of chapter. Chapter 1639. A huge gash immediately appeared on the strange fish's head. Blood flowed out, and under the stimulation of pain, the strange fish's body seemed to twitch slightly. However, because of the magic of the treasure coin, it could only twitch and could not make any movements to dodge or resist. Seeing this, Yen Miao's power erupted even more fiercely. She held the Panshan saber tightly with both hands and slashed it down like a storm. Of course, she didn't know anything about saber techniques. However, with her powerful cultivation and the sharp weapon in her hand, which was transformed from the ancient soldier race, Her opponent was in a situation where he couldn't dodge. Even if she didn't know anything about saber techniques, she could still cause great damage. Blood splattered, and in just a moment, the wound on the strange fish's huge head was so deep that the bone could be seen. However, this fellow's bones were undoubtedly very hard. Yen Miao slashed a few more times, but only left shallow scars on its skull. Lu Yi activated the treasure coin's power again and shot a golden light over. At the same time, he discovered something. Although the power of the treasure coin had an irresistible binding effect on the strange fish, as the number of times the treasure coin's power was activated increased, the time it could bind the strange fish seemed to be shortened. Not to mention other things, the speed at which the golden light enveloping the strange fish's body dissipated was obviously faster than the first time. Lu Yi was not sure at first, but when he used the golden light to envelop the strange fish for the third time and carefully observed the situation of the golden light fading, he immediately confirmed this matter. From the looks of it, if the treasure coin was used on the same enemy, the effect would become worse and worse. Right now, he could use the surrounding seawater to quickly activate the treasure coin's power and restrain the strange fish before it broke free. However, if he used it too many times, there would inevitably be a situation where the strange fish broke free and the treasure coin's power did not accumulate enough. Once the situation occurred, Yen Miao, who was right in front of him, would be in danger. Therefore, he had to end the battle quickly. Yen Miao obviously also noticed this point, and also noticed the strange fish's hard skull. She immediately abandoned her original target and attacked other parts of the strange fish, probably trying to find the strange fish's weakness. Such a big sunshine star beast, its entire body could not be as hard as its skull. A moment later, the strange fish was covered in cuts and bruises. Smoke Meow also found the weakest part of the strange fish's body, which was the fish's belly. At this moment, the fish's abdomen had been cut open, and its internal organs were flowing out. The strange fish howled in pain, and the murderous glint in its eyes became even more intense. However, under the restriction of the golden light, it could only quietly feel the flow of its own vitality, and was completely powerless to resist. After Lu Yi activated the power of the money for the fourth time, Yen Miao slashed down a few more times before he finally stopped, his aura fluctuating. The strange fish in front of her was still wrapped in the golden light, but there was no sign of life. She stared at the strange fish that had been chopped to the point where she couldn't even make out its original appearance. She couldn't believe that she had actually killed Rizhao. Although it was a star beast without high intelligence, it was still Rizhao. When they recalled everything that happened earlier, it was truly extremely dangerous. If it wasn't for Li Taibai possessing that strange and profound treasure coin, the two of them would have really fallen here. Lu Yi rode over on her seahorse, which was still trembling, and looked at the strange fish's corpse with great interest. The corpse of a star beast had a certain value, especially the star beasts in the Wanxiang Sea. This was because the star beasts in the Wanxiang Sea were basically spirit fish, and they lived in such a special environment all year round. Their flesh and blood were extremely valuable as food and medicine. Just by looking at the price of a white spirit fish, any white spirit fish could be sold for a few thousand spirit jades, and white spirits were considered the lowest level of spirit fish star beasts in the Wanxiang Sea. The value of such a sunshine spirit fish's corpse was naturally not something a white spirit fish could compare to. Lu Yi estimated that even if this strange fish was chopped beyond recognition by Yen Miao, it could be sold for at least a few million spirit jades. Moreover, there was a sunshine-level crystal core in its body, which was more valuable than flesh and blood. It could easily be sold for tens of millions of spirit jades. Of course, she couldn't let go of such a good thing. The crystal core was easy to deal with as long as she took it out. However, this strange fish's corpse was too big to fit in her storage ring. She could only separate it. Lu Yi asked Yen Miao, who was still in a daze, "Great Elder, please remove the fish's flesh and blood." Yen Miao naturally wouldn't refuse. Although she had used a lot of energy in the battle just now, she wasn't completely exhausted. It could even be said that the energy she used to kill the fish with the mountain pan saber was not as great as the energy she used to use the conch that could repel star beasts. Yen Miao understood Lu Ye's intention and immediately cut the strange fish's flesh into pieces. Lu Ye happily put them away. When the strange fish was alive, its body was strong, and Yen Miao had to use a lot of energy to cut it. However, after it died, its body wasn't as strong. Although it wasn't to the extent that she could cut it open easily, it was already a piece of cake for Yen Miao. After working for a full 2 hours, only a skeleton was left of the strange fish. The skeleton was also a good thing, especially the skull of the strange fish. It was extremely hard. Even Miao Yen was unable to cause any substantial damage to the skull. If it was refined into a treasure like a shield, it would certainly be impregnable. Without the flesh and blood, it was more convenient to disassemble the bones. However, Lu Yi only took the hardest part of the skull and left the bone spurs and other things to Yen Miao. She could bring these things back to her clansmen and then refine them into weapons to kill enemies. Although the strange fish was dead, its bones still contained a trace of divine power. If the mermaid clan used the bone spurs to refine weapons, the star beasts in the 10,000 Elephant Sea might not dare to provoke them. It could be said that just the bone spurs on the strange fish's body could increase the mermaid clan's ability to survive in the 10,000 Elephant Sea by a large margin. Yen Miao thanked her. Lu Yi said, "Great Elder is too polite. You killed the fish, so you deserve it." Yen Miao smiled and shook her head. She did kill the fish, but if it weren't for the power of Lu Ye's treasure coin, not to mention killing the fish, she would have been buried in the fish's stomach. Yen Miao was undoubtedly very curious about the treasure coin that could restrain the Sunshine Star Beast, but she didn't ask much. Lu Yi was the key to helping the mermaid clan get rid of the curse. Naturally, she was happy to see that Lu Yi had such a treasure to protect himself. Yen Miao rested for a while, then the two set off again. On the way, Lu Yi didn't have to be careful anymore. Instead, he rode on the seahorse and looked left and right, wishing he could find another Sunshine Star Beast to kill. Such a good opportunity was rare. Under normal circumstances, if he wanted to kill a Sunshine Star Beast, he didn't know how long it would take before he had the ability to do so. However, in this place, the treasure coin's power was limitless, and Yen Miao, a late-stage Yu Yao, was there. If any Sunshine Star Beast dared to jump out, Lu Yi would shine a golden light on it and hand the mountain pan saber to Yen Miao. The difference between killing it with a single slash or a single slash was the difference. Moreover, he also discovered that the treasure coin's golden light was incomparably fast. If he wasn't vigilant in advance, he wouldn't be able to dodge it. That strange fish had lived under the sea for countless years, so its speed was undoubtedly very fast. It wasn't any slower than a normal Sunshine Star Beast, but under Lu Ye's sneak attack, it was still hit. The only way to avoid the treasure coin's power was to be vigilant in advance and dodge or block the moment Lu Yi attacked. Otherwise, if Lu Yi attacked, the enemy would have no chance. As early as when he participated in the struggle for the Constellation Hall, Lu Yi knew that a life and death battle between cultivators didn't only depend on the strength of one's own foundation, but also external forces. In particular, some people had strange treasures in their hands. That was what he had to guard against the most, because no one knew what kind of power those strange treasures had. He never thought that he would also have one now, and it was a treasure that could threaten the Sunshine Star. Although the treasure coin could only display its limitless power under the 10,000 Elephant Sea, it had a storage effect and could be used once outside. This was his life-saving trump card in the face of a strong enemy. Along the way, they encountered a few lunar star beasts, but they didn't have any conflicts. However, the Sunshine Star Beast that Lu Yi had been longing for didn't appear again. It seemed that there weren't many Sunshine Star Beasts under the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Until a certain moment, Lu Yi suddenly realized that the situation above his head wasn't quite right. The seawater didn't seem as dark as before. He had gone deep into the 10,000 Elephant Sea several times, so he was naturally very clear about this change. He immediately understood that he was about to swim out. Calculating the time, it had been almost a month since he and Yen Miao set off from the mermaid territory. Judging from this, he had chosen the right direction, otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to swim out so quickly. If he had chosen the wrong direction, he might not have been able to reach the sea even after swimming for several months. He quickly stopped Yen Miao and communicated with her through his divine sense. Yen Miao immediately became excited. She had been waiting for this moment, but when it finally arrived, even with her temperament, she couldn't face it calmly. Had the power of the curse in her body really disappeared? Could she really leave the 10,000 Elephant Sea? These were all unknowns, so she had to take a gamble. If she succeeded, it would be a good thing. This meant that Lu Yi was indeed the person who could help their clan get rid of the curse, just as the ancestors' teachings said. However, if she failed, she would definitely die. Great Elder, don't show yourself first. I'll find a suitable place, Lu Yi reminded her. It wouldn't be good to let others see them coming out from under the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Otherwise, it would be too shocking. Moreover, Lu Yi couldn't be sure that Yen Miao wouldn't be in danger if she went out to sea like this, so he had to find a safe place to avoid being discovered. If anything happened, Yen Miao could immediately enter the sea. Yen Miao nodded. I'll wait for your news. Lu Yi nodded and continued to swim upstream. This place was indeed close to the sea surface. The higher they went, the brighter the light. After a while, he quietly poked his head out from under the sea and looked around. After confirming that there was no one around, he quickly flashed out and activated the power of the talent tree to condense his doppelganger. Then he hurriedly dressed his doppelganger. Immediately after, he entered the sea again and returned to Yen Miao's side. His doppelganger stayed in the sea. End of this chapter. Chapter 1640. With the mutual sensing between the original body and the doppelganger, it would be more convenient to act. If the original body was not here, even if Lu Yi found a suitable place, he would not be able to inform Yen Miao in time. Communication was unrealistic. The isolation of the Wanxiang Sea was too serious. Even if the distance was very close, the sound talisman's message could not be transmitted. In fact, Yen Miao could go out to sea from this location, but because he had not found a place to stay, it was not appropriate. Lu Yi wanted to find a deserted island. In this way, Yen Miao would at least have a place to stay after going out to sea. What's wrong? Yen Miao saw Lu Yi return so quickly and thought something had happened. It's okay. Great Elder, come with me. Lu Yi called out and led Yen Miao in a direction. Above the sea, the doppelganger followed. In a short while, he saw a deserted island in front of him. This should be a very remote place in the Wanxiang Sea, because Lu Yi did not see many cultivators coming and going. Such a deserted island met his requirements. He slowly approached, but when he got closer, he found that there were a few people on the island, and judging from their posture, they seemed to be fishing. Lu Yi laughed. He had been a fisherman for a while and was carefully taught by Pu Ku, so he was quite clear about the fish resources in the Wanxiang Sea. Normally, the area where the fishing island was located had the richest fish resources, followed by the other fishing spots. Basically, no white spirits came to this place, but things were not absolute. Since there were fishermen here, there was no doubt that there were fish resources here. Since there were people, Lu Yi naturally had to avoid them. But just as he was about to do so, he suddenly frowned, because he found that the figures on the island in the distance were somewhat familiar. Looking at them with full eyesight, they were really familiar. Was he treating his words as wind that passed by his ears? Lu Yi pondered for a moment, then moved over in a flash. On the island, 3 men and 1 woman were gathered together. The 3 of them held fishing poles and were fishing in peace. The only beautiful woman took an armchair and lazily reclined on it. Beside the chair was a table with a few plates of spirit fruits on it. She was eating happily. Someone's coming. Suddenly, the shorter man in the middle opened his mouth. Originally, he just wanted to remind his companions to be careful. After all, their cultivation was not high. If someone wanted to harm them in this place, a fight would be inevitable. After saying those words, he took a closer look, and his face darkened. It's Lu Yi. What? The woman who was lying lazily on the chair with her skin exposed jumped up like a startled rabbit. Following the short man's gaze, she saw Lu Yi walking over leisurely. The corners of the woman's eyes twitched and she cursed, "Which bastard told on us?" If it weren't for someone snitching, Lu Yi wouldn't have found such a desolate place. In order to avoid being discovered by Lu Yi, they deliberately avoided crowded places like the fishing island. Who would have thought that they still couldn't avoid Lu Yi? The tall and straight man with the posture of a sword said, "There's a traitor. He deserves death." Another man with a sturdy physique and surging chi and blood nodded, indicating that he had better not find out who had leaked the secret, or else he would definitely teach that person a lesson. Was it easy to miss them? Each of them was a figure who had once led an era. It wasn't easy for them to make a name for themselves, but they were sent to a place like the blood-refining world. When they finally made a name for themselves again, they followed Lu Yi to the 10,000 Elephant Sea and found that they were just low-level cultivators. They wanted to become stronger. They wanted to cultivate. They needed spirit jades. It was said that fishing was a good way to make money. As long as they caught a fish, they would be able to earn several thousand spirit jades. Therefore, even though Lu Yi had warned them not to get involved in this field, they still sneaked over. They didn't dare to let Lu Yi know, lest they be lectured. They were already so old, and being lectured by a young man like Lu Yi, did they not want to lose face? But now Lu Yi still found them. If they ran, they would appear guilty, but if they didn't run, it would be a little awkward. A moment later, Lu Yi landed on the island and glanced at the 4 strongest generals under eldest senior brother's command. It was really unexpected to find the 4 of them here, but on second thought, they should have deliberately avoided him, so they chose such a desolate place. Yi. Wu Chang looked at Lu Yi with an embarrassed expression. Lu Yi had told him in front of him that fishing was not reliable and told him not to think about it, but now he was caught red-handed. He obviously didn't trust Lu Yi. In fact, it wasn't that he didn't trust Lu Yi, but he really wanted to verify whether this way of making money was reliable. "Are you fishing?" Lu Yi casually asked with his hands behind his back. Wu Chang saw that he didn't seem to care too much, so he relaxed and nodded. "I'm fishing." "How's the harvest?" Lu Yi asked. Wu Chang smiled bitterly. "There are no fish here. Otherwise, Yu Ji wouldn't be sitting there eating spirit fruits." Her fishing rod was placed on the shore, and after the bait entered the water, she didn't care about it at all. "You can't fish like this," Lu Yi said with a skilled expression. "If you want to fish, you have to at least find a good fishing spot. The fishing island is good. Whether you can catch fish or not, at least there will be some movement from time to time." Wu Chang was surprised. You fished before?" When Lu Yi advised them not to get involved in this matter, Wu Chang thought that Lu Yi was very repulsed by it, but why did Lu Yi's tone sound like he was experienced? "Of course I've fished before. When I first came to the Wanxiang Sea, I was a fisherman for a period of time." Meng Jie's interest was piqued, and he said in a low, muffled voice, "What happened?" Lu Yi sighed. "I can't bear to look back on the past. My fishing rod was pulled away by a fish, and I lost everything. That's why I advised you not to fish." Yu Ji spat out a grape seed and couldn't help but laugh. Even if you want to persuade us, don't say such irrelevant things. We've asked around. That Bai Ling isn't big, so how could it pull away a fishing rod? At that time, you were a constellation, and you killed Yu Yao." Lu Yi said, "That's the truth." As soon as his voice fell, Yu Ji's fishing rod on the shore suddenly moved, as if there was some kind of giant creature biting the hook. The fishing line that hadn't moved this entire time suddenly went taut, and then pulled the fishing rod into the sea. Yu Ji's reaction was very fast, and she stood up from the chair in a flash. She moved to the shore and grabbed at the fishing rod. But she still caught nothing. Splash! The fishing rod fell into the water, and it disappeared in the blink of an eye. Yu Ji was stunned, and so were Wu Chang and the others. They stared fixedly at the rapidly disappearing splashes. "My rod." Yu Ji's heart was about to bleed. Although this fishing rod was a second-hand good bought from someone else, she still spent some spirit jades on it. Now, before she even opened for business, the fishing rod was pulled away. In contrast to Yu Ji's heartache, Wu Chang and the others were instead excited. As a group of fishermen, they were not afraid of not being able to catch fish, but they were afraid of nothing happening when they were fishing. They had randomly chosen this spot, and there had been no movement at all. They never thought that there would really be fish here. Even Yu Ji's fishing rod was pulled away, This fish was really not small. At this moment, Wu Chang's eyes widened, and he exclaimed, "There's movement." When he finished speaking, he suddenly raised the fishing rod, and the sound of the fishing line being pulled taut sounded. Then, the fishing rod bent into a big bow. Wu Chang was very excited. Big fish. But the moment he said that, he felt that something was wrong, because the force coming from under the sea was ridiculously strong, and he could not control the fishing rod for a moment. In just an instant, the fishing rod was pulled into the water, and then Wu Chang's entire body was pulled forward uncontrollably. Wu Chang was completely dumbfounded. He had never heard of such a big fish under the sea. Jian Guhong and Meng Jie's expressions changed. Jian Guhong even shouted in a low voice, "Let go!" At the same time, he swung his sword at the fishing line. If he did not let go, Wu Chang would be pulled into the sea. But this unforeseen event caught him off guard, and by the time Wu Chang let go, it was already a little too late. He could only watch as he was about to be pulled into the sea. At the critical moment, a force came from behind him, and his whole body was suspended above the sea. When he came back to his senses, Wu Chang was covered in cold sweat. He turned his head with a stiff expression to look at Lu Yi behind him. If Lu Yi had not caught him just now, he would have fallen into the sea. Although he had not been here for a long time, he had heard so much about the dangers of the 10,000 Elephant Sea. After all, it was a place where even Rizhao did not dare to go deep. Another whine sounded, but this time it came from Jian Guhong's side. Having seen Wu Chang's encounter with his own eyes, Jian Guhong was prepared this time, so he reacted immediately. Immediately afterward, he felt the helplessness of Anika. The power coming from the bottom of the sea was not something he could resist. After a moment of stalemate, Jian Guhong let go of the fishing rod and let it fall into the sea. Wu Chang and Yu Ji's eyes widened. For a moment, they were at a loss, completely unable to understand what was going on. They had been fishing here for a long time without any movement, but suddenly there was such a big movement. Out of the 4 people, 3 of them had been dragged away. This loss was not an ordinary kind of loss. Only Meng Jie was left. "Your strength is too weak." Meng Jie had not yet realized the seriousness of the problem. As a body cultivator, he immediately showed a disdainful look, indicating that if the fish did not bite the hook, he would definitely catch it and show it to them. The next moment, his expression froze, because the fish really did bite the hook. However, when Meng Jie began to wrestle with the fish, he suddenly realized that something was wrong. This was not a matter of whether an ordinary person's strength was great or not, but the force coming from the opposite side was not something a cultivator of their level could contend with. Even if he was a body cultivator and his strength was far superior to the other 3, he instantly fell into a disadvantageous position in such a confrontation. Something was not right. How could this be? A sword whine sounded, and a sword chi slashed. It was Jian Guhong who had cut off Meng Jie's fishing line. Meng Jie stumbled back a few steps and stared fixedly at his rod without a fishing line, deep in thought. End of chapter. Chapter 1641. For people, for rods. They had come here to fish in high spirits, but now there was only one empty rod left. Not to mention bait, even the fishing line was gone. The few of them were shocked and puzzled. They looked at each other and saw the deep suspicion in each other's eyes. Something was wrong. Before Lu Yi came here, they hadn't done anything at all. But Lu Yi had just arrived, and there was such a big commotion. They even lost their fishing rods. They didn't believe that this had nothing to do with Lu Yi. But they also didn't believe that this had anything to do with Lu Yi. They couldn't say that Lu Yi had used some method to take their fishing rods away, right? That was under the Wanxiang Sea. Even if Lu Yi had something like a clone, he couldn't have gone deep. But this was Lu Yi after all. If there was something extraordinary or incomprehensible happening to him, it wasn't impossible to accept. "Quit," Lu Yi said after a moment of silence. The corners of their eyes twitched. They were even more certain that this had something to do with Lu Yi. It seemed that he really didn't want them to get involved in fishing, so he used such an outrageous method. "Quit, quit." Wu Chang nodded repeatedly. If the rod was gone, what else could they do? Should I go and buy another one? Not to mention the huge investment. After this attempt, they found that fishing was indeed a little unreliable. Yuji packed up her armchair and the table on the side. They couldn't fish anymore, so they could only go home. Yeah, do you want to go back with us? Wu Chang asked. Lu Yi said, you all go back first. I still have something to do. Wu Chang nodded. Then we'll wait for you on the island. Go back early. The four generals hurriedly left. At the same time, under the sea, Yan Miao curiously watched Lu Yi put away one fishing rod after another. She couldn't help but ask, what's going on? Lu Yi didn't explain too much. Nothing. I'm helping people quit gambling. Great Elder, let's go back up. He put away the fishing rods and said, Great Elder, you still have to be careful. It's best not to go out to sea all at once. Although it was basically certain that the power of the curse in Yan Miao's body had been neutralized, it was better to be careful before it was confirmed. Yan Miao nodded solemnly. This moment had finally arrived, and she was already somewhat impatient. Lu Yexin came out of the sea first and put away his doppelganger. Then, he stood on the surface of the sea and waited quietly. After a while, a head slowly emerged from the sea, revealing a dignified face. She only revealed her head and silently sensed it. Her expression gradually became joyful because if the power of the curse hadn't been completely eliminated, even if she only revealed her head, she should still feel something strange. But in reality, she didn't feel anything out of the ordinary. It was just that this was her first time out at sea, so she wasn't used to the environment outside. After waiting for a while, her figure slowly left the sea. As she left, she was vigilant. Even after she left the 10,000 elephant sea, everything was still normal. Yan Miao almost cried tears of joy. After countless years of waiting, the clan's desire was finally fulfilled in his generation. Moreover, he was the first clan member to leave the 10,000 elephant sea and come to the outside world. Great Elder, this way. Lu Yexin led Yan Miao and landed on the deserted island. However, he just stood on the shore, ready to guard against anything that might go wrong. Yan Miao stepped on solid ground and experienced a different feeling from living under the sea. Even as a late-stage Yu Yao, she couldn't help but feel a great sense of novelty. This was the outside world, a completely different world from the sea. She paced back and forth, unable to suppress the excitement in her heart. After a long while, she slowly calmed down. She walked up to Lu Yexin and bowed gracefully. Many thanks, little friend. Great Elder, you're too polite. It was just a small matter. It was indeed a small matter, but it consumed some of the talent tree's fuel and time. However, Lu Yexin quickly thought of something and said, I heard from the princess that although your clan's cursed power has the drawback of not being able to leave the 10,000 elephant sea, it also gave you the ability to live under the sea. Now that the power of the curse has been removed, will your clan's survival in the 10,000 elephant sea be affected? Judging from Yan Miao's recent performance, there shouldn't be any effect. After all, if there was any effect, it would have been revealed long ago. In reality, Yan Miao's curse had been removed a month ago, but she was still able to live under the sea. Yan Miao shook her head. From the looks of it, after generations of inheritance and imperceptible influence, even if the current merfolk had solved the curse, their own physique still had the ability to survive under the sea. This was very good. This was because even if the merfolk really did remove the power of the curse, they couldn't openly live under the sea. They were a rare race. Like the soul race, they all had some special abilities that could easily attract the covetous eyes of powerful factions. It didn't matter to the several elders. They were already married, so on the surface, they didn't have too many obvious characteristics of the mermaid race. They didn't look much different from humans. As long as they didn't display the abilities of the mermaid race, others would hardly be able to see any flaws. However, Bai Lu was different. She had the body of a human and the tail of a fish. Anyone who saw her would be able to tell that she was a merfolk. Therefore, this branch of the merfolk needed to live under the sea. If they lost the ability to survive under the 10,000 elephant sea because of the removal of the power of the curse, it would be troublesome. Young friend, can you take me on a tour? Yen Miao was eager to try. She had heard many things about the 10,000 Elephant Sea from Bai Lu. Now that she was here in person, she naturally wanted to experience it. This was a scenery that no one in their race had seen for countless years. Of course. Lu Yi nodded. He summoned his star boat and invited Yen Miao to come aboard. Just as he was considering whether or not to take Yen Miao to 10,000 Elephant Island to watch the show, the musical note suddenly vibrated. He took it out and saw that Tang Jun had sent him a message. "Kid, where did you go? Why can't I contact you? Come back quickly." Lu Yi had been under the sea for the past month. How could Tang Jun contact him? Tang Jun knew that Lu Yi had returned. Wu Chang and the others must have spread the news. Lu Yi didn't need to ask to know that something had happened on the Three-World Island. If he calculated the time, the change should have happened more than 10 days ago. He didn't need to go to 10,000 Elephant Island for now. It was better to go to the Three-World Island first. He could go back and open the portal so that Yen Miao could return to the merfolk's territory and report his safety. He hadn't heard from them for a month. The merfolk must be waiting anxiously. Just as he was about to leave, Yen Miao stopped him. She pointed down and said, "What about those two?" Lu Yi looked down and saw two seahorse heads floating on the surface of the water, looking at them pitifully from afar. He had forgotten about them. The two seahorse mounts were the merfolk's assets. He couldn't just leave them here. It was unrealistic to expect them to swim back on their own. They might become food for some ferocious star beast along the way. Lu Yi didn't have anything like a spirit beast pouch on him. He thought for a moment and said, "Let's take them with us." After all, as long as they returned to the Three-World Island and opened the door, they could send them back through the door. They just needed to be careful and not be discovered. The journey to the Three-World Island was desolate. There wouldn't be many cultivators. Even if they were discovered, it wouldn't be a big problem. No one would think that the seahorse star beasts were actually from the 10,000 Elephant Sea. They would only think that they were brought here from somewhere else. They put the two pitiful seahorse star beasts on the star boat and flew toward the Three-World Island. Along the way, Yen Miao and the two seahorses looked around curiously. They were just like Lu Yi when he first came to the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Everything was new to them. Their reactions were even greater than Lu Ye's. After all, this was their first time going out to sea. The dark and deep environment under the sea was not as spacious as the outside world. Freedom was everywhere. Yen Miao could still suppress her excitement. The two seahorses, on the other hand, kept crying out in excitement. They met some cultivators along the way. Although they saw the two seahorses, they didn't pay much attention to them. Half a day later, they arrived at the Three-World Island. From afar, they could see that the entire island was enveloped by a grand formation. Cultivators could be seen everywhere on the island. It looked like an impregnable defense, but in fact, the grand formation was only for show. It didn't have much defensive power at all. However, it was precisely because of this layer of formation that separated the outside from the outside that no one would be able to sense the changes in the Three-World Island unless they were on the island itself. Of course, this was only temporary. When the changes on the island became greater and greater in the future, a mere defensive formation would no longer be able to cover them. Tang Jun and Luan Xiao stood side by side. They seemed to be waiting for Lu Yi. Their expressions were somewhat complicated. They seemed to be both excited and nervous. The star boat flew in and hovered in front of them. Old Tang shouted, "Yi, something big has happened." Lu Yi asked casually, "What's so serious?" He stepped off the star boat. Yen Miao followed closely behind. The two seahorses also got off the star boat. "Feel it carefully." Lu Yi sensed a little. The Three-World Island was originally a deserted island. There was no starry sky energy on the island. However, it was obviously different now. There was a certain amount of starry sky energy on the island. Although it wasn't enough for cultivators to cultivate, this change was undoubtedly a sign that the deserted island was turning alive. Tang Jun had never experienced a deserted island being turned alive. When Lu Yi placed him on the unparalleled island, it was already a spiritual island. However, Little Dumb, Crooked Tooth, Kai Xing, Kai Yu, Lucky Star, and the others had indeed experienced this. They could be said to be the original elders of the unparalleled island. They had accompanied the entire process of the island's transformation. Therefore, when the three-world island changed, they immediately noticed it. They then told Tang Jun their findings, clearly indicating that it was a sign that the deserted island was turning alive. End of chapter. Chapter 1642. Tang Jun wasn't too sure at first, but as time passed, the starry sky energy on the island became denser. Only then did he realize that the three-world island had really come to life. He couldn't believe it, but it was happening. He tried to contact Lu Yi in a hurry, but he couldn't. Only when he heard from Wu Chang and the others that Lu Yi had appeared out of nowhere did he try to contact him again. Not bad, it's come to life. Lu Yi nodded slightly. He noticed the strange expressions on Tang Jun and Luan Xiao's faces, so he added, "My eyes are not bad." Tang Jun couldn't help but twitch. This had nothing to do with eyes, okay? Moreover, the location of the three-world island had nothing to do with Lu Yi. As far as he knew, before Lu Yi went to Chelingjie to find him, he told Luan Xiao to find a large deserted island. So, the one who chose the three-world island was Luan Xiao. But some things were really strange. Tang Jun had learned from the five sisters that Lu Yi had taken over the matchless island first. Later, Chu Shen brought the five of them here with Lu Ye's permission to stay. Then, the matchless island came to life. Now, the three-world island seemed to be experiencing the same thing as the matchless island. Although there were occasional cases of deserted islands coming to life on the Wanxiang Sea, it was too much of a coincidence for the same person to encounter it twice. Moreover, whether it was the matchless island or the three-world island, they both changed after Lu Yi took over. It was too ridiculous to say that this was a coincidence. Tang Jun couldn't help but recall Lu Ye's seemingly unintentional words when he first chose this deserted island. He said, "What if this deserted island comes to life? People always have dreams." At that time, Tang Jun had snorted and said that if the island came to life, he would call Lu Yi Grandpa. He couldn't call him Grandpa. At his age, calling him Grandpa would shorten Lu Ye's lifespan. But now that he thought about it, Lu Ye's words weren't just about dreams. Otherwise, why would Lu Yi put so much effort into planning the three-world island? He even asked him to build it according to the model of the matchless island. There was no reason for him to put so much effort into a deserted island, unless Lu Yi already knew that the island would come to life. Looking at Lu Ye's indifferent expression, Tang Jun was shocked. The three-world island coming to life? Could it be that Lu Yi had something to do with it? But how was that possible? How could such a large island be changed by human strength? Or could it be that Lu Yi was a geomancer? But that didn't seem right either. Luan Xiao was the one who suggested the choice of three-world island, and Lu Yi made the final decision. It couldn't be that Luan Xiao had the same ability. If she really had that ability, she wouldn't have been so excited these days. Narrowing his eyes, Tang Jun asked carefully, "Yi, what kind of spiritual island do you think the three-world island will become in the future? A high-class spiritual island?" Lu Yi asked casually. Tang Jun's heart skipped a beat. If the three-world island could really grow into a superior spiritual island, it would be much more valuable than the unparalleled island. After all, the three-world island was several times bigger than the unparalleled island. The bigger the island, the more cultivators it could accommodate, and the stronger its foundation would be. A top-grade spiritual island? Lu Yi asked again. Tang Jun almost jumped out of his seat. He was even more certain that Lu Yi had something to do with this. He quickly raised his hand to stop him. "Enough. I think that the three-world island should be able to grow into a middle-grade spiritual island. Any more and we won't be able to handle it." With the strength of the three-world island's cultivators, they could still occupy a low-class spiritual island and a middle-grade spiritual island. But if it was a superior spiritual island, they wouldn't be able to defend it at all. Not to mention a top-grade spiritual island. If the three-world island really became a top-grade spiritual island, everyone would become homeless the next day. One must have ambition, old Tang. Lu Yi tried to persuade him. Tang Jun couldn't help but roll his eyes. He wanted to have ambition, but he had to have the corresponding strength to back it up. Right now, the three-world island only had him and Luan Xiaoa. 500 constellations sounded good, but more than half of them were in the early stage of constellation. Their strength was limited. How could they defend such a huge property? He felt that he had to have a good talk with Lu Yi. If the three-world island's revival really had something to do with Lu Yi, then he had to be careful. He didn't want the three-world island to become a top-grade spiritual island. In the end, he would only repeat the same mistake and work for someone else. When Tang Jun and Lu Yi were talking, Luan Xiaoa didn't interrupt. This was because she had been observing Yen Miao, who was brought back by Lu Yi. Even though Yen Miao hadn't used any power, she could vaguely feel that this beautiful and dignified woman was probably not any weaker than her. In other words, she was also in the late stage of the Moon Jade realm. She was curious. Where did Lu Yi get to know such a powerful cultivator and bring her back? She couldn't have been recruited from the recruitment island, right? This is Great Elder Yen Miao. Lu Yi introduced her to Tang Jun and Luan Xiaoa, then said to Yen Miao, "This is the Great Island Lord of the Three-World Island, Luan Xiaoa. This is the Second Island Lord, Tang Jun." This was the first time Yen Miao saw a human other than Lu Yi. Though she had met on the way here didn't count. She smiled and greeted the two of them. They were considered to have gotten to know each other. Tang Jun asked curiously, "Where did you get the title of Great Elder?" Since she was a Great Elder, she should be from some force. Could she be from some spiritual island? Did Lu Yi want the three-world island to form an alliance with someone else? This was common on the Wanxiang Sea. Basically, some of the weaker forces would form an alliance and help each other. This way, if there was a dispute, they could help each other without violating the rules of the Wanxiang Sea. Lu Yi said, "The force that Great Elder Yen Miao belongs to is a native force of the Wanxiang Sea. I'll tell you in detail later. Anyway, Great Elder Yen Miao is not an outsider." Tang Jun had expected this. If she was an outsider, Lu Yi wouldn't have brought her in like this. A native force of the Wanxiang Sea. Could it be a force from some realm in the Wanxiang galaxy? Tang Jun couldn't help but let his imagination run wild. If that was the case, could the three-world island be considered to have latched onto the thighs of the local galaxy? However, when he thought of the ending of the Unparalleled Island, he felt a little uneasy. The Unparalleled Island had been poached by the Tianyan realm of the local galaxy. Luan Xiaoa said, "The cultivators of the three-world island are very excited about the revival of the three-world island. This way, even if they don't have many channels to earn spirit jades in the future, at least they won't fall behind too much in terms of cultivation." Although the energy on the three-world island was still thin and couldn't meet the needs of cultivation, at this rate, it should be enough in less than a month. When the three-world island became a middle-grade spirit island in the future, the energy on the island would be even denser. But junior brother, the spirit island is now revived. We don't know what changes will happen in the future. I'm worried that the array we set up previously won't be enough. The array on the three-world island was just for show. Other than isolating the island from the outside world and preventing the dissipation of energy, it didn't have any other uses. Such an array could protect a deserted island. After all, no one would attack a deserted island. However, it couldn't protect a spirit island. On the Wanxiang Sea, even a low-grade spirit island was the target of many forces. This place was always in a situation where there were too many monks and too little gruel. Various forces fought over a spirit island. It was common to see one side take the stage after another. Lu Yi nodded. The array does need to be improved and strengthened. When Tang Jun was in charge of setting up the array, Lu Yi had already asked him to keep a backup plan. Therefore, it wasn't difficult to improve and strengthen the array. Tang Jun spread his hands. "I don't have money." This was the main problem. During this period, the cultivators of the three-world were thinking about how to earn spiritual jades. If it wasn't for Lu Ye's previous instructions, many people would have gone to Laika Island. "I'll think of a way," Lu Yi said. "Please wait for a moment." As he said this, he called Yen Miao. "Grand Elder, please follow me." Yen Miao excused himself and left with Lu Yi. Soon, they arrived at Lu Ye's sleeping quarters. Two seahorse star beasts followed at the side, looking around curiously. Grand Elder, please wait for a moment. Lu Yi said this and waited quietly. After a while, Hua Si, who had received his message, appeared. Seeing a beautiful woman standing beside Lu Yi and looking at Yen Miao's full chest, she immediately understood. She looked at him meaningfully and a strange smile appeared on her face. Lu Yi looked at her eyes and felt a headache coming on. However, he couldn't say anything in front of Yen Miao. Hua Si handed over a storage ring and said, "All of the spirit pills that I've refined recently are in here." Lu Yi took it and Hua Si left without saying a word. Lu Yi then handed the storage ring to Yen Miao. "These are the pills we refined recently. They're no different from the ones I gave you before. Please accept them." Yen Miao said happily, "Thank you, young friend." Although the treasure body pill was useful to her, it wasn't very useful. However, the spirit refining pill was what she desired the most at this stage. With the help of the spirit refining pill and the curse's power gone, Yen Miao was confident that she could break through to the Sunshine Realm. Grand Elder is too polite. Also, the princess and the other elders are anxious. I'll send you back to report that you're safe. Thank you. Yen Miao was indeed thinking of this. If she was in the Emperor Snail Palace and didn't receive any news for a month, she would definitely be anxious. Moreover, it was time to tell the tribe that the curse's power was gone. She shouldn't enjoy this joy alone. Lu Yi took out his azure sea conch. Just as he was about to blow it, he suddenly remembered something. "All right, Grand Elder, please take out the cold jade board that carried the mark." The conch mark he left on the board was still there. If he didn't remove it, he didn't know if he could open the door to the Emperor's Snail Palace. If Lu Yi didn't mention this, Yen Miao would have forgotten about it. She quickly took out the cold jade board. Lu Yi used the conch in his hand to remove the mark before blowing it. The door opened and Yen Miao stepped in with the two seahorses. Before she left, she said to Lu Yi, "Young friend, please wait for me for a moment." She was obviously going to come back. Now that she's back, things are a little troublesome. The child needs an operation, but the hospital's schedule has been full recently. The operation is scheduled for the 13th, so I have to go over on the 12th. If there's a problem with the update, I'll inform everyone. End of chapter. Chapter 1643. Lu Yi waited quietly in front of the door. A moment later, the door rippled, and Yen Miao's figure appeared again. She couldn't help but smile. Just as she thought, the mermaid clan was anxious after waiting for a month. However, they couldn't contact Lu Yi and Yen Miao. They didn't know what was going on with them, whether they had gone out to sea, or whether Yen Miao would be in danger. Amidst this torment, Miao Miao returned and brought them great news. The entire mermaid clan was in an uproar. Several elders, including Queen Bai Shuang and Princess Bai Lu, surrounded Yen Miao and asked her questions. If not for the door's time limit, Yen Miao wouldn't have been able to leave. The mermaid clan knew a lot about the situation in the Wanxiang Sea. After all, Ghost had been cultivating there, and Bai Lu often chatted with her about trivial matters. However, it was just hearsay. Who wouldn't want to see it with their own eyes? Now that great elder Yen Miao had taken this step, the others wouldn't be far behind. Yen Miao handed over a storage ring. "Young friend, there are some spirit jades here. Consider it to be used to buy those spirit pills. However, there aren't enough. I've already ordered people to speed up the mining. I'll make up for it later." "No problem." Lu Yi took the storage ring and glanced at it. There were about a few million spirit jades in it. The money to strengthen the formation was now available. With the mermaid clan as their backing, as long as they could supply spirit pills, the three-world island would never lack for expenses. "Also, young friend, when would it be convenient for you to visit our clan's territory again?" "Several elders would like to come and take a look," Yen Miao said again. With Yen Miao's success as a precedent, the other elders obviously wanted Lu Ye's help to remove the curse power in their bodies. Lu Yi glanced at the door that was slowly disappearing and said, "I can't do it now. I'll have to wait at least 7 days. How about this? I'll come again in 7 days." "No hurry, no hurry. Young friend, you're the most important." Yen Miao smiled. She was in a good mood. Once the curse in his body was resolved, not only would his people be able to leave the sea, but he would also have a much higher chance of advancing to sunshine. Who wouldn't want such a good thing? Lu Yi was about to leave when he suddenly thought of something. However, there is one thing I must ask Great Elder to know. Nobles are considered a rare race in the starry skies. If your identity is exposed, it will inevitably arouse the covetous eyes of some powerhouses. For someone like Great Elder, as long as you are careful, you will be fine, but for someone like the princess, it is best not to leave the territory. Hearing this, Smoky Meow recalled Bai Lu's expectant gaze and nodded slightly. Although Bai Lu was destined to be disappointed, for safety reasons, it was indeed not good for her to show her face in public. Their tribe had lived under the 10,000 Elephant Sea for too many years, so they didn't know much about the outside world. If Lu Yi didn't specifically warn them, they might really cause some trouble later on. Great Elder, please help yourself. I still have some matters to attend to, Lu Yi said before leaving. Wan Xiaoa and Tang Jun were still waiting. They didn't know why Lu Yi wanted them to wait here. When Lu Yi returned, he handed them a storage ring filled with millions of spirit jades. Tang Jun was stunned. Where did you get it? Where did Lu Yi get so many spirit jades in such a short time? He definitely didn't have them earlier. Otherwise, he would have given them just now. Lu Yi pondered for a moment and felt that he should let the two know about the existence of the mermaid race. After all, if he wasn't on the three-world island in the future, he would have to rely on the mermaid race to protect the three-world island. The two island masters, Luan Xiaoa and Tang Jun, were qualified to know about the existence of this ally. Moreover, Lu Yi wanted the cultivators of the three-world island to make a trip to the Heavenly Spiral Palace. There, cultivators had a chance of obtaining a conch of their own as a gift from the Heavenly Spiral Palace. Some conches were very useful. Although there were many strange uses for conches, some of them were very useful. The 500 cultivators of the three-world island, even if they were unlucky, they could at least obtain a few dozen conches, right? If they obtained some rare and powerful conches, it would increase the strength of the three-world island. Have you heard of the mermaid race? Lu Yi asked. Luan Xiaoa nodded. Of course. I heard that the mermaid race has a wonderful singing voice. Their voices often have incredible power. They can be considered a rare race in the starry sky. As she spoke, Luan Xiaoa looked at Lu Yi in confusion. She didn't know why he suddenly mentioned the mermaid race. Tang Jun was enraptured. I heard that the women of the mermaid race are all as beautiful as flowers and have beautiful voices. It's a pity that I don't have the chance to see them. Lu Yi glanced at him. I didn't expect you to be such an old man. You're so old, so you're not paying attention to things. That Great Elder Yen Miao just now is from the mermaid race. What? Luan Xiaoa and Tang Jun were both shocked. They looked at Lu Yi suspiciously, as if they wanted to see if he was joking. However, the two quickly realized that Lu Yi wouldn't joke about this. It was meaningless. Luan Xiaoa said, No wonder that Great Elder gave me a strange feeling. She didn't seem like a pure human. She really isn't a human. As for why she didn't look like the legendary mermaid, Luan Xiaoa obviously knew the key. That Great Elder was obviously a woman, so she could naturally transform into legs. Lu Yi said, The 10,000 Elephant Sea has many secrets. It's not as simple as it looks. We only live above the 10,000 Elephant Sea, but there's another deep world below. Tang Jun's eyes twitched. Kid, don't tell me that Great Elder's race lives under the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Lu Yi looked at him. That's right. The mermaid race that Yen Miao belongs to lives under the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Tang Jun and Luan Xiaoa were even more shocked. They looked at Lu Yi in disbelief. After a long while, Luan Xiaoa said, But, isn't it said that the 10,000 Elephant Sea's water is so corrosive that even Rizhao can't go deep? That's right. However, a mysterious place has its own mysteries. Many spirit fish and star beasts live under the 10,000 Elephant Sea. They can survive, but of course other races can too. The mermaid race could survive mainly because of the power of the curse. However, there was no need to explain this so clearly. In short, The mermaid race lives under the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Now, we can be considered to have established a very good and solid cooperative relationship with that mermaid race. Tang Jun suddenly understood. So this was what you were referring to when you said they were a local force. He had thought that they were a mermaid race that lived under the 10,000 Elephant Sea in a certain realm of the 10,000 Elephant Galaxy. Calling them a local force didn't seem wrong. So these spiritual jades were given to us by them? Wan Xiao suddenly realized where these spiritual jades came from. They weren't given to us. I made some deals with them. These were obtained from selling spirit pills, Lu Yi explained. What kind of spirit pills could sell for so many spiritual jades at once? Both Yueyao wanted to ask, but she held back. However, since it was a deal, there was no problem with taking them. If they were really given to them, it would be a bit of a waste. I'm telling you this mainly because I want to tell you that the three-world island won't lack spiritual jades in the future. The most important thing for us cultivators of the three-world island now is to improve our own strength. Nothing else matters. Only by improving our own strength can we protect the three-world island. Lu Yi said earnestly, I may leave the 10,000 Elephant Sea soon, so I'll have to trouble you two to take care of the three-world island. Where are you going? Tang Jun frowned. He was the third island master after all. He couldn't just leave everything to others. Lu Yi had left last time and lost Peerless Island, so he was a bit traumatized. There are some things I need to take care of. Lu Yi didn't explain. It had been some time since she returned to the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Although Li Shang had never urged her, it was time to send her back to the Soul Race's ancestral land. Wan Xiao said, do whatever you need to do. Don't worry about the three-world island. When you return, it will definitely be the same. During this time, she and Tang Jun had been worrying about the future of the cultivators of the three-world island. At the end of the day, they lacked money. They hadn't been able to find a solution to this problem, but Lu Yi had already solved it. The cost of several hundred cultivators' future cultivation was not a small amount. Now, they didn't have to worry about it at all. If they couldn't protect the three-world island, then what was the use of the two of them? Also, the merfolk have a conch hall. It's quite mysterious. Lu Yi gave them a simple explanation of the conch hall. Tang Jun and Wan Xiao were both interested. There were all kinds of conches. If they could obtain a useful one, it would be useful for the future development of the three-world island. That's still their secret realm. Will they let us in? Tang Jun asked worriedly. Lu Yi thought for a moment and said, that branch of the merfolk will be the strongest ally of the three-world island in the future. They won't be stingy with opening the conch hall to us. I'll talk to the Grand Elder about this. It shouldn't be a problem. He then turned to Wan Xiao and said, Senior Apprentice Sister, you have a mission now. Wan Xiao's expression turned serious. Junior Apprentice Brother, just tell me what to do. In name, she was the Grand Island Master, while Lu Yi was only the third island master. However, she understood that the future of the three-world island depended on Lu Yi. The only thing she could do was to provide him with military force. Accompany Grand Elder Yen Miao for the next few days. She's new here, so she probably wants to go out for a walk. Wan Xiao immediately understood and smiled. Junior Apprentice Brother, don't worry. I'll take good care of fellow Taoist Yen Miao. After saying that, she told Tang Jun to take care of the three-world island. Then she left to find Yen Miao. Yen Miao was indeed going out for a walk. However, the three-world island was only so big and it hadn't developed yet. Apart from a few cultivators, there wasn't much to see. Just as she was hesitating about whether she should say goodbye to Lu Yi and go out for a walk, Wan Xiao arrived. Yen Miao was overjoyed by her warm invitation. The two girls immediately flew out of the three-world island together, and their figures gradually disappeared into the distance. Since the two Yu Yao were traveling together, no one would be foolish enough to provoke them on the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Thus, there was no need to worry about their safety. Wan Xiao had a clear goal. She brought Yen Miao straight to the 10,000 Elephant Island. After all, that spiritual island was the most prosperous place in the entire 10,000 Elephant Sea. End of chapter. Chapter 1644. Yan Miao was accompanied by Luan Xiaoa, and it would be 7 days before they left for the mermaid territory. Lu Yi had a rare moment of leisure. He didn't dare to relax as he had to improve his foundation as much as possible. Old Tang was preparing to reinforce the island's great formation, and many formation masters were mobilized. Lu Yi didn't need to interfere. He went to check on Yi and Hupo. It was rare that Yi wasn't cultivating, but was talking and laughing with Li Shang. Hupo was lying on the side. Sensing Lu Ye's approach, he immediately opened his eyes and walked over, rubbing his head against Lu Ye's hand. After chatting for a while, Lu Ye's expression turned serious. "Fellow Taoist, I still have some trivial matters to take care of. Once I'm done, we'll set off immediately." Li Shang smiled. "Don't worry, you can take care of your own matters. It won't be too late to set off when you're done." Lu Yi nodded. He vaguely felt that something was missing, so he asked suspiciously, "Where's Yaya?" Normally, Yaya would be with Hupe, but Lu Yi didn't see Yaya this time. He couldn't help but feel puzzled. "She went out to play," Li Shang said. Lu Yi didn't care too much. He chatted with Yi for a while before leaving. He walked to another place. This was the Three World Islands pill room. Second senior sister and Hua Ci were refining pills here. The existence of the pill gourd was too sensitive, so it wasn't good to let too many people know about it. For a long time, only a few people from the Jade Blood sect knew about the pill gourd. In the past, refining pills was very difficult because they had to keep an eye on the changes in the flame and be ready to throw in different ingredients at any time. But now, with the pill gourd's help, refining pills was much simpler. They only needed to throw in the corresponding ingredients, and there wasn't even the slightest bit of flame. Therefore, Hua Ci and Shui Yuan's matters were relatively easy. The main reason Lu Yi came here was to bring the Sunlight Star Beast's flesh. This was the main ingredient for refining the treasured body pill. In the past, the treasured body pills were refined using Constellation Spirit Fish Star Beasts. Now that they were refined using Sunshine Star Beasts, the effects would definitely be better. When Lu Yi came over, Shui Yuan greeted him warmly. Hua Ci glanced at him and said with a faint smile, "That woman isn't young. Are you talking about her age or something?" Lu Yi felt a headache. He hurriedly explained, "That's the great elder of the mermaid clan." The words mermaid clan immediately piqued the interest of the two women. Lu Yi then briefly explained the matter of the mermaid clan. Shui Yuan said excitedly, "So in the future, if you don't have the materials to refine the treasure body Dan, you can ask them for help? Just buy it directly," Lu Yi said. "Or you can offset it with some spirit pills." Shui Yuan said, "That makes sense. If we buy the materials from them and refine them into spirit pills and sell them to them, we will never lack the materials for the treasure body Dan." Previously, she was worried about what she would do if she ran out of materials. She didn't know where Lu Yi had found these materials, but now it seemed that she didn't have to worry. As long as the Merfolk clan was willing to help, she would have as many main materials as she wanted. When the time came, not only could he sell it, the cultivators of the three realms could also use it to strengthen their bodies. Moreover, the treasure body Dan from the pill gourd had no impurities and had outstanding effects. When the time came, a group of law cultivators with bodies not inferior to ordinary body cultivators. If someone came looking for trouble, he would definitely give them a surprise. The only pity was that he couldn't do this for spirit refining pills. Although there was a lot of spirit refining grass, there was no other source. He had to prioritize those who needed it, such as Luan Xiaoa, who was preparing to break through to the Sunlight Realm. Hua Ci was more interested in another matter. "Can we enter the Heavenly Spiral Hall? I'll go back and talk to Great Elder Yan Miao. It shouldn't be a problem. You two get ready. I'll go to the Mermaid Clan's territory in a few days. We'll go together then." The two women agreed. Lu Yi left the meat of the Sunlight Star Beast behind and left. He had to take the opportunity to cultivate for the next 7 days. He didn't have to go too far. He just needed to enter the sea near the Three Realms Island. This way, he could save time. After all, everyone was on the same side. It didn't matter if they were seen. When he reached the sea, Lu Yi saw a small figure standing on the edge of a cliff. Lu Yi was shocked and quickly pulled her back. Frowning, he asked, "Yaya, what are you doing?" Yaya's expression was a little dazed, as if she had just woken up. She blinked her eyes and pouted. Her eyes were red. "Daddy, I had a terrible dream." How could she have a dream in the middle of the day? She even came here in her dream. She had mentioned something similar last time. Lu Yi vaguely felt that something was wrong. He asked carefully, but Yaya couldn't explain it clearly. She only said that in her dream, there was a bad guy who beat her up. It hurt a lot. Lu Yi frowned. Speaking of which, ever since Yaya found her second jade bracelet in the Mist Dragon, she seemed to have changed a little. In the past, Yaya was more sleepy, but it was just that. Now, her situation seemed to be more serious. Lu Yi guessed that it might have something to do with her second jade bracelet. The bracelet must be Yaya's. Thinking back to the nightmare that Yaya had mentioned, Lu Yi suspected that the so-called nightmare was something that Yaya had experienced before. Was her memory recovering? If so, it was a good thing for Yaya. No matter what attitude she had towards him after she recovered, it was sad that a Rizhao had been reduced to such a state. But, you can't run around alone in the future. Lu Yi reprimanded her in fear. She even ran to the edge of the cliff. What if she fell? Yaya nodded obediently. Lu Yi sent Yaya back and told Li Shang what had just happened. Li Shang was also scared. Although she and Lu Yi both knew that Yaya was actually a Rizhao, after calling her father and mother for so long, she had some feelings for them. She secretly blamed herself for bringing Yaya with her. At the same time, she felt a little melancholy because she would have to leave in the end. What would happen to Yaya after she left? Lu Yi went into the sea, leaving a doppelganger outside to take care of and cultivate quietly. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. Yen Miao and Luan Xiao returned. Yen Miao also wanted to walk around more, but after all, the clan's affairs were more important. When it was time to meet Lu Yi, she came back early. These days, she really opened her eyes. She never thought that the world at sea would be so wonderful. Such a wonderful thing was not good for her to enjoy alone. It was true happiness to be able to share it with her clansmen. After several days of traveling, Yen Miao learned one thing. She was able to reach a deal with Lu Yi in terms of elixirs, which was a great advantage. The largest Vientiane Chamber of Commerce on the Vientiane Sea also sold treasure body pills and soul refining pills, but the quality could not be compared with those provided by Lu Yi. Even if there were some best quality elixirs, they were extremely rare, especially the best quality soul refining pills, which were out of stock all year round. It was said that once there was stock, it would be auctioned, and many strong people would fight for it. After knowing this, she was even more grateful to Lu Yi. A person who could help her clan solve the curse problem and provide great help to her clan would undoubtedly become the most important friend of the mermaid clan. So when she came back, Lu Yi mentioned the matter of the Tian Luo Hall, and Yen Miao agreed without hesitation. Lu Yi had been in the Tian Luo Hall, and so had Ghost, so it was not only open to the mermaid clan. Lu Yi immediately asked Luan Xiao to start arranging people to enter the mermaid clan's territory. The 500 people of the three-world island could not all go in at once. Most of them had to stay behind to guard the spiritual island. Under Luan Xiao's arrangement, the 500 people would enter in 5 groups. The truth of the Tian Luo Hall's test was not told in advance, because it was useless to tell them in advance. No matter how good one was at playing or singing, it would depend on one's own luck to receive the Tian Luo Hall's blessing. Lu Yi had been sent into the Tian Luo Hall by Lu without knowing. Soon, the selected 100 people began to gather. Basically, no one knew what was going on, but no one asked too much. They just waited quietly. Among the crowd, Hua Si, Shuiyuan, Yi, and Yaya were all there. Even Hupa came to join in the fun. No one knew how it would pass the test when it entered the Tian Luo Hall. In a large hall, everyone looked at Lu Yi. Then, they saw him take out a green conch and gently blow it. Due to their previous experience of fighting against the insectoids and vampires outside of Apeiron, everyone's hearts tightened when they saw Lu Yi blow this inexplicable thing. They were afraid that another dancer would pop up and lead them to dance and sing. Fortunately, there were no dancers here. As the conch sounded, a door appeared in front of Lu Yi. "Great Elder, please go ahead," Lu Yi said. Yen Miao nodded. He was the first to step in. Then over 100 cultivators entered the door in an orderly manner. One by one, they disappeared. Finally, it was Tang Jun and Lu Ye's turn. Stepping through the door, they immediately appeared in front of the Tian Luo Hall. At this moment, over 100 cultivators of the Three-World Island were restless. They had actually seen the Mermaid Clan. In front of the Tian Luo Hall, a few elders of the Mermaid Clan, Bai Lu, and the others were waiting. The elders, like Yen Miao, looked no different from humans. However, Bai Lu was a true mermaid with a human body and a mermaid tail. Her unusual style was an eye-opener for the cultivators of the Three-World Island. Bai Lu had never been stared at by so many people. Her face turned red and she hid behind the elders. "Great Elder," Lu Yi called out. Yen Miao understood and immediately took out a cold jade board from his storage ring. It was the one with the conch's mark on it. Lu Yi didn't want to swim back. Although he had the protection of treasure coins and it wasn't too dangerous, it would take too long. So, he thought of a way to open the door here and directly return to the Three-World Island. Taking the cold jade board from Yen Miao, Lu Yi hurriedly left the conch's mark on it and handed it to Tang Jun. Tang Jun said, "Then this old man will go back first." With that, he returned to the Three-World Island through the door. With the conch's mark on the cold jade board, the next time Lu Yi blew the conch to open the door would be connected to the Three-World Island. End of chapter. Chapter 1645. He would open the door to the conch palace on the Three-World Island, then imprint the conch mark on the cold jade board and have someone bring it back to the Three-World Island. This way, the next time Lu Yi blew the conch, the door would open on the Three-World Island. This was a trick Lu Yi had thought of. In fact, he could have done this the last time, but he hadn't thought about it. Fortunately, he hadn't lost anything. After swimming in the sea for a month, Lu Yi had cultivated for a month, so he hadn't wasted any time. Moreover, he had discovered the correct way to use the treasure money and its huge potential. Yen Miao had already informed the elders of the situation. The elders naturally wouldn't be stingy and opened the door to the conch palace to this group of future allies. They immediately began to make arrangements. A moment later, 100 cultivators from the Three-World Island rushed into the conch palace. As for how many of them would benefit, that would depend on their own luck. After the cultivators of the Three-World Island had made arrangements, only the mermaid elders and Lu Yi remained outside the palace. Lu Yi could clearly feel several pairs of eyes staring at him, as if they were looking at a delicious cake, full of desire. Plagued by the power of the curse, the Mer people could only live in the depths of the 10,000 elephant sea since birth. If it had always been like this, it would have been fine. They could endure the darkness, but now, because of Lu Yi, they had hope of seeing the light. This wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that after solving the curse, they could pursue a higher cultivation realm. Even if the chances weren't great, it was still a chance. Since ancient times, only the queen's bloodline could reach the sunshine realm in this branch of the mermaid race. It was all because of the curse. The pursuit of a higher realm and greater strength could be said to be the innate instinct of every cultivator. Who could resist such a temptation? Elders, if you're ready, shall we begin? Lu Yi asked. The elders nodded their heads like chickens pecking at rice. We're ready. If Lu Yi hadn't spoken, they wouldn't have been able to bring it up. Now that Lu Yi had taken the initiative, things were much easier. Young friend, this way please. A quiet room has been prepared. Yen Miao gestured with her hand. A short while later, Lu Yi sat upright in a quiet room. In front of her was a woman whose beauty was no less than Yen Miao's. She was the second elder of this branch of the mermaid clan. However, compared to the Grand Elder's dignified and graceful demeanor, the second elder's demeanor was even more delicate and charming. At this moment, her eyes were filled with anticipation as she stared at Lu Yi. Her beautiful eyes shone as she softly spoke. Thank you for your hard work, little friend. Well said. Please extend your hand, second elder. Lu Yi extended his hand. The second elder placed her small hand on Lu Ye's palm. Lu Yi had the experience of helping Yen Miao deal with the curse power, so she was naturally familiar with this task. She immediately urged the power of the talent tree to slowly invade the second elder's body. Outside the quiet room, the other elders and Bai Lu were waiting. More than 4 hours later, the door to the quiet room opened. Everyone looked up and saw the second elder with a red face. He walked out while panting lightly. His eyes were rippling, but his face was full of excitement. He said softly, "Next." For a few months, the mermaids of the Jade Realm looked at her in confusion. "What did you do in there?" There was clearly something wrong with the second elder's condition. Yen Miao couldn't help but explain, although the power used to deal with the curse power is relatively gentle, it's still of the fire element. Thus, the process will cause some damage to the body. However, the damage isn't too great. You'll be able to recover after resting for a while. Compared to dealing with the curse power, that little bit of damage was negligible. "I'm going," said the third elder as she walked into the quiet room. More than 4 hours later, the usually aloof third elder also walked out of the quiet room like the second elder. Next came the fourth elder, then the fifth elder. In just one day, Lu Yi burned away the curse power in the bodies of the mermaid clan's elders as well as Bai Lu. However, the mermaids of the Jade Realm weren't limited to just the few of them. There were more than 30 mermaids of the Jade Realm. To Lu Yi, this wasn't too troublesome. All she needed was some time and fuel from the talent tree. In any case, she couldn't use the conch right now, so she couldn't return to the three-world island. Lu Yi decided to work harder in the next few days and deal with all the mermaids who needed to deal with the curse power. Within the heavenly conch hall, the 100 cultivators of the three-world island walked out one after another. Some of them obtained conches, while others didn't. Comparatively speaking, only a small portion of them obtained conches. Among the 100 people, less than 10 obtained conches of varying quality. Since the door couldn't be opened, they couldn't return. Naturally, they were warmly welcomed by the mermaids and stayed for the time being. For the time being, they were able to experience the scenery under the sea. 7 days later, the cultivators of the three-world island gathered again. Lu Yi directly opened the door in front of the heavenly conch hall. The cultivators of the three-world island filed in and returned to the three-world island. Before leaving, Lu Yi gave Hua Xi a storage ring filled with spirit jades. There were no less than 20 million spirit jades in total. These spirit jades were all extracted by the mermaids during this period of time. Yen Miao had paid for the elixirs she had bought from Lu Yi. However, most of the spirit jades were more than what Yen Miao had bought from Lu Yi. For the time being, it was a gift to thank Lu Yi for helping them burn the power of the curse power. This was a great help to Lu Yi. The burning power of the curse power consumed a lot of the fuel of the talent tree. He still needed to cultivate in the future and urgently needed to replenish the fuel of the talent tree. After Hua Xi walked out of the door, she immediately went to find Luan Xiaoa and asked her to take her to Tianyan Island. It didn't take her much effort to find Enja's store. Of the 2 people that Lu Yi had brought with him, Hua Qianying was forced to leave Tianyan Island. However, Enja didn't leave because he had an entire realm behind him. Although he had to pay more rent, he could still make a lot of money by opening a store on Tianyan Island. Hua Xi used 20 million spirit jades to buy dragon breath crystals. She planned to send them to Lu Yi the next time he opened the door. In the mermaids' territory, the 100 cultivators of the three-world island left. Another 100 people came and entered the heavenly conch hall under the arrangement of the mermaids. Lu Yi continued to help the mermaids extinguish the power of the curse power. Yen Miao took some time to discuss this with him. Although there were many mermaids, not all of them needed to be cured of the curse power. For example, the mermaids with low cultivation levels didn't need to be cured. Even if they did, it wouldn't be very meaningful. Apart from all the Yu Yao, the rest of the mermaids were carefully selected by the elders. Therefore, there weren't many of them. After nearly half a month, a mermaid walked out of the quiet room with gratitude. Yen Miao walked in leisurely. Lu Yi glanced at her and asked curiously, "Is that all?" He calculated. He helped about 5 mermaids extinguish the curse power of the curse power every day. In the past half a month, about 70 or 80 mermaids had come to this quiet room. However, these 70 or 80 mermaids could be considered the most elite force of the mermaids. They were either Yu Yao or late-stage constellation masters with hopes of becoming Yu Yao. Young friend, you've been busy for half a month. Take a rest first. There's plenty of time in the future. There's no rush, Yin Miao said. Lu Yi said, actually, I'll be leaving the 10,000 Elephant Sea soon. I haven't set a date for my return. Moreover, this matter won't take much effort. If your clan has any other candidates, feel free to send them over. I'll take care of them all at once. As for the fuel for the talent tree, Hua Si had already sent over 20 million dragon breath crystals when they opened the door for the second time. At the same time, Lu Yi gave her a lot of spirit jades and told her to continue buying dragon breath crystals. These spirit jades were naturally the first to be mined by the mermaids. In the past, although the mermaids owned a spirit jade mine, they didn't need much. Thus, they didn't mine too much. Apart from mining a portion for future use, they didn't mine too much. However, things were different now. The mermaids needed to spend a lot of spirit jades. Naturally, they had to mine more of them. Upon hearing Lu Ye's words, Yen Miao said, "Then I'll have to trouble you, young friend." Originally, the mermaids weren't prepared to let Lu Yi solve the problem for so many of their people. However, they realized something. After the power of the curse disappeared from their bodies, not only did the elders with the deepest cultivation bases see the hope of advancing to the sunshine level, even the other members of the mermaids found it easier to cultivate. In the past few days, there were even 2 late-stage lunar constellation members who had advanced to the lunar jade level, adding another 2 lunar jade level combatants to the clan. This made them realize that not only did the power of the curse restrict the mermaids' freedom, it also restricted their potential. Now that Lu Yi insisted and the mermaids had a need, the two sides naturally hit it off. In the next month, Lu Yi stayed in the quiet room and didn't leave. The number of mermaids who had their problems solved by him had already exceeded 200. For this group of mermaids, 200 people was already quite a lot. After all, their entire group only had 2,000 people at most. 10% of them were at the lunar constellation level or above. The rest were basically mermaids who hadn't reached the lunar constellation realm. Lu Yi didn't need to worry about them. Because their cultivation bases were too low, they couldn't recover well from the injuries caused by the curse. Unlike those at the lunar constellation realm, their bodies were tempered and their wounds healed very quickly. Including the previous half a month, the 500 cultivators of the 3-world island came to the mermaids' territory 5 times in a month and a half. Everyone entered the heavenly spiral palace once, but only a few were able to gain anything. The problem of the mermaids could be considered solved for now. Even if they still had other needs, that would be a matter for the future. Lu Yi heaved a sigh of relief. The reason why he spared no effort in helping the mermaids solve the problem of the curse and didn't even mention to Yen Miao and the others about the fuel consumption of the talent tree was that he hoped that one day, if the 3-world island really encountered any trouble, the mermaids would have enough manpower to go and help. Helping the mermaids was equivalent to helping the 3-world island. Of course, the rewards were not small either. During this time, all the spiritual jades that the mermaids had mined were all given to Lu Yi. After splitting them up a few times, Lu Yi received about 70 to 80 million spiritual jades from Yen Miao. Apart from leaving a portion as backup for the 3-world island, he had Hua Si buy the rest for him into dragon breath crystals. End of chapter. Chapter 1646. According to Hua Si, Inja was grinning from ear to ear after the deal was done. He repeatedly reminded her to tell Lu Yi that he would come over for tea when he was free. Where else could he find such a large and stable customer? Including the previous transaction with Lu Yi, the total amount of spirit jades he had received from Lu Yi alone was 1 or 200 million. This was a huge sum of money for the domain behind Inja and could help the entire domain develop. Of course, Lu Yi didn't have time to drink tea. He didn't even have time to drink the spirit tea Hua Qianying gave him. The Merfolk tribe didn't need his help anymore, so he wasn't in a hurry to return to the 3-world island. After this trip, The fuel for his talent tree had been greatly replenished. It was time to cultivate. He had to enter the sea anyway. It was the same here or on the three-world island. It was more convenient here. After saying goodbye to Yen Miao, Lu Yi dove into the deep sea, allowing the power of the sea to corrode his body. He also hunted some spirit fish and star beasts. With the treasure coins in hand, even if he encountered Ri, he still had the power to fight back. Time passed. Lu Yi would occasionally return to the merfolk tribe's territory to rest and recuperate. However, he spent most of his time in the sea. While his cultivation base had been greatly stabilized and accumulated, he also gained a lot of spirit fish and star beasts. Most of them were constellation realm. He didn't even need to use the treasure coins to kill these spirit fish and star beasts. Occasionally, he would need to use the treasure coins when he encountered Yu Yao's star beasts. Even Ri couldn't resist the power of the golden treasure coins, let alone Yu Yao. Once she was hit by the golden light, she would be at Lu Ye's mercy. A month later, when Lu Yi was searching for spirit fish near the merfolk tribe's territory, he suddenly felt something different in his body. At the same time, many inexplicable insights appeared in his mind. He quickly stopped and checked his body. When he looked inside himself, he saw that his flesh and blood were shining. This was the condensation of the essence of his flesh and blood. Every cultivator who entered the constellation realm and began to temper their physique would experience this change. The more light there was in the body, the better the physique was tempered. However, different constellation cultivators would definitely have different situations of tempering their physique, especially cultivators of different sections. In the cultivation of the constellation realm, body cultivators had a relatively better advantage because they paid attention to the cultivation of their physical bodies and could better temper their physique. At this moment, Lu Ye's body was filled with light. Specks of light shone brightly, a clear sign that he had been tempered to the extreme. Moreover, although the surrounding seawater was still invading his body, Lu Yi could clearly feel that it could no longer bring him any improvement. In other words, the essence of his physique had been tempered to the limit. Of course, this was only the limit of his current realm. In the future, when he advanced to Yu Yao and Ri Zhao, the upper limit of his physique would increase. This was also why it had taken him so much effort to kill Bai Jin back then. Bai Jin's physique was on a completely different level from his own. Generally speaking, once a cultivator reached this level of cultivation, they could begin to prepare for the advancement of Yu Yao. Lu Yi was now qualified to do so. It had not been easy. It had been several years since he advanced to the late-stage constellation realm. Even with the help of the talent tree, the efficiency of refining spirit jades could not be compared to going deep into the 10,000 Elephant Sea. However, ever since he returned to the 10,000 Elephant Sea, he had been cultivating under the sea intermittently for at least 2 months. After such a long time, he had no idea how much energy he had devoured and refined before he finally reached this step. If not for the reincarnation tree's reminder, Lu Yi would have already prepared for the advancement. This was because he could feel that it would not be difficult for him to advance to Yu Yao. The spirit qi in his body was pure enough. It could be said that there were no impurities. This would greatly increase the success rate of converting spirit qi into dermic power. However, with the reincarnation tree's reminder, he did not have any thoughts of advancing for the time being. No matter what, he had to go take a look at the Yin-Yang Great Millstone first. Elder Shu had lived for so long. Perhaps he had existed since the formation of this galaxy. Naturally, he knew some secrets that others did not. The Yin-Yang Great Millstone would definitely be beneficial for advancing to Yu Yao. However, compared to tempering his physique to the extreme, Lu Yi was more concerned about another matter. He silently pondered for a moment, then turned around and flew in the direction of the merfolk's territory. A moment later, he crossed the huge spirit jade mine and returned to the royal snail palace. He returned to his residence. He raised a hand, and his qi and blood gathered on his fingertip. In an instant, a drop of blood appeared on his fingertip. The blood was not bright red. Instead, it was a dark red. Lu Yi didn't show it on the surface, but he could clearly sense the terrifying power contained within this drop of crimson blood. If it were to suddenly erupt, it would be even stronger than his full-powered attack. It might even be able to take on Yu Yao head-on. The enlightenment he had gained under the sea just now once again surged into his mind. Treasure blood. It was something even more profound than blood essence. If blood essence was the essence refined from one's own flesh and blood, then treasure blood was the essence refined from blood essence. Ordinary cultivators did not have such things. They usually only had blood essence. The so-called treasure blood could only be possessed by members of the blood tribe. Furthermore, it could only be possessed by members of the blood tribe who had a sacred bloodline. Of course, there were also some exceptionally talented members of the blood tribe who had cultivated the blood tribe's secret techniques to the extreme and condensed their own treasure blood. However, these were extremely rare cases. Even members of the blood tribe who possessed a sacred bloodline only had a chance of condensing treasure blood. It was not guaranteed. The enlightenment Lu Yi had just gained came from the inheritance of the blood tribe's bloodline. This made him feel a little strange. To be honest, before this thing was born, he did not even know about the existence of treasure blood. It was only when his physique reached the extreme that this drop of treasure blood was naturally born. Lu Yi felt that this had something to do with the fact that he had refined a lot of sacred blood. Ordinary members of the blood tribe's sacred bloodline could only refine 3 to 5 drops of sacred blood. How much sacred blood had he refined? He had at least a few hundred drops. His sacred blood was so strong that it could be said that no member of the blood tribe could compare to him. Therefore, even treasure blood, which was difficult for members of the blood tribe to refine, could be naturally born in his body. Bloodline inheritance was a very wonderful thing. It was not an intuitive teaching, but when one's bloodline reached a certain level, the hidden mysteries of the bloodline would naturally be revealed. In the starry sky, many powerful star beasts, strange beasts, and even demonic beasts relied on bloodline inheritance because they were extremely rare. Take Hoopoe for example. After it was born, it did not have any elders to teach it, but it could still transform into a frustrated spirit. This was a bloodline inheritance, a kind of instinct. The enlightenment Lu Yi had just gained was a kind of bloodline inheritance related to treasure blood. For a moment, he realized the many magical uses of treasure blood. Directly detonating the energy contained in it was the simplest method, but also the most wasteful method. With a slight thought, the treasure blood in his hand shone brightly. Then, it twisted and quickly turned into a human figure. A figure that was exactly the same as Lu Yi, a clone. With the help of treasure blood, he could easily create a clone that belonged to him. The doppelganger technique was a very practical secret technique. Many cultivators had mastered it, but there were not many who could cultivate this secret technique to the extreme to the point where they could pass off as the real thing. There were many types of doppelganger techniques. For example, his master Yun Xuechu's Shao Dai doppelganger was created with the help of an external object. Shao Dai's true body was only a creation of Yanshi. This type of clone was different from the true body. It could even be said that they were not the same kind of life form. There were also clones created with the help of treasures, but they were also created with external help. The doppelganger in front of Lu Yi was not created by external forces, but by his own precious blood. This kind of doppelganger was even more profound and perfect than ordinary doppelganger techniques. It was not easy for others to see through it. However, Lu Ye's thought stirred. He stimulated the might of his talent tree and created another clone. He already had a doppelganger. This time, the 3 Lu Yes stood together and looked at each other in dismay. The scene was incomparably strange. After silently comparing them, Lu Yi soon discovered that the clone condensed from his own treasure blood was somewhat inferior to the one condensed from the talent tree. This difference was not in appearance, but in the inside. Although he could control the treasure blood clone like an extension of his arm and could even pass it off as the real one and display his full strength, compared to the clone condensed from the talent tree, it did not have the ability to quickly devour and refine it. Moreover, Lu Yi could feel that he could not be too far away from the treasure blood clone. Otherwise, he would lose contact with it. This was clearly inferior to the talent tree clone. Although there was also a distance limit between the talent tree clone and the true body, this distance was much farther. He had to admit that the bloodline inheritance of the blood race was very powerful. However, compared to the clone technique, the talent tree clone was clearly superior. To Lu Yi, the precious blood avatar was of little value. The only advantage was that it was fast. It was not like the talent tree clone that could be traced. Therefore, if he used the treasure blood clone in battle, Lu Yi could not help but daydream. It seemed to be a good choice. It could catch people off guard. In any case, the birth of the treasure blood was an accident. It would be good for Lu Yi to have another way to deal with the enemy. Moreover, Lu Yi could feel that his understanding of the treasure blood was still very superficial. Even if he had a lot of enlightenment just now, he could not immediately recognize the value of the treasure blood. These things needed to be slowly explored and practiced in the future. He suddenly remembered that when he obtained the sacred bloodline inheritance, it contained information that when the bloodline was cultivated to the extreme, one could be reborn from a drop of blood. Back then, Lu Yi was only at the true lake realm, so he naturally scoffed at it. Now that his cultivation had reached the star constellation realm, his horizons were much higher than before. Now that he looked at it again, there were no clues about rebirth from a drop of blood. However, who could guarantee that if the sacred bloodline was refined again, the treasure blood would not undergo unexpected changes? Lu Yi found that he had one more thing to do in the future, and that was to condense the treasure blood. Just now, only one drop of the treasure blood was produced. It could be considered a change after the essence of the physique was tempered to the extreme. However, he could still condense more treasure blood and store it in his body. It would not be too late to use it when he needed it. Thinking about it, when the time came, one drop of treasure blood would be able to transform into a clone. What if it was 10 drops, 100 drops? It would be a proper Lu Yi army. Each of them would be able to display his full strength. The most reassuring thing was that the treasure blood clone could even transform into clothes, unlike the talent tree clone, which he had to give a set of clothes to wear every time. End of chapter. Chapter 1647. Lu Yi returned to the three-world island. His physique had been tempered to the extreme. There was no need for him to stay in the sea any longer. When he passed through the door, he saw a few mermaids waiting at the side. When they saw Lu Yi, they bowed politely and entered the door, returning to the mermaid territory. While cultivating in the sea, Lu Yi did not return. However, he would open the door every few days. The mermaids who had been cured by him needed to use the door to travel between the sea and the sea. Therefore, the three-world island was not only filled with cultivators of the three-world island. There were also some mermaids. They traveled together and enjoyed the scenery of the sea. It was an eye-opening experience. However, only the mermaids dared to go out. The mermaids could only walk around the three-world island. There was no other reason. The women of the mermaid clan looked no different from humans, except that they were all as beautiful as flowers. However, the men of the mermaid clan were different. They looked ferocious. Although they could take human form, it was still inappropriate for them to show their faces in public. It was fine for them to just stroll around the three-world island. Lu Yi spread out his divine perception. He realized that although there were more cultivators on the three-world island than before, it was much less lively. The foundation of the three-world island had long been established. Although the three-world island had yet to reach the level of a mid-tier spiritual island, after several months of accumulation, it was not far from it. Furthermore, the island had a stable source of spiritual jades, so most of the cultivators in the three-world island were in a state of cultivation. As a result, the entire spirit island was quieter. There were not many traces of people coming and going. Lu Yi estimated that at this rate, the three-world island would definitely become a middle-grade spirit island in 1 or 2 months. When that time came, the cultivators of the three-world island would not only be able to borrow spiritual jades but also the resources of the spirit island. Their cultivation efficiency would increase greatly. When it became a high-grade spirit island in the future, it would be even more amazing. When Lu Yi appeared, Luan Xiaoa and Tang Jun arrived almost at the same time. Old Tang looked at Lu Yi, who had not appeared for a long time. "You finally came back. My cultivation was delayed for a few days. Lu Yi explained casually. Tang Jun obviously didn't believe it. It was said that Lu Yi had a very good relationship with the princess of the mermaid clan. He had stayed under the sea and didn't come back. Who knew if he was trapped in a gentle land? The mermaid princess. His expression turned solemn. I have something to tell you. Lu Yi nodded. That's great. I have something to discuss with the two of you. Luan Xiao said, this is not the place to talk. Let's go to the conference hall. After a short while, the 3 island masters of the 3-world island gathered in the conference hall. Lu Yi took out the spirit tea that Hua Qianying had given him, brewed a pot, and poured some for Luan Xiao and Tang Jun. Tang Jun took a sip and felt that the tea was really good, so he directly took the teapot. He was also considered to have seen the world. When he was a consecrated elder on Wushuang Island, many forces relied on their connections to get a lot of good tea, but those spirit teas seemed to be inferior to the one in front of him. He felt that after drinking this tea, his mind would become much more peaceful. Drinking it over a long period of time could even increase one's cultivation and strength. One had to realize that he was a moon jade middle stage cultivator. Ordinary spirit tea would only be able to taste its flavor and wouldn't have any other effects. The quality of Lu Ye's tea was obviously not low. What can I do for you two? Lu Yi asked while sipping his tea. Luan Xiao said, actually, it's not a big deal and it has nothing to do with us. Tang Jun interrupted, it's about Tianyan Island. What's wrong with Tianyan Island? Lu Yi had some guesses, but he still asked. Tang Jun held the teapot and chuckled. Tianyan Island's level is showing signs of weakening. I went to take a look a few days ago and found that it's true. Right now, Tianyan Island is probably just a high-class spirit island. He had a gloating look on his face, and it was obvious that he was in a good mood. Tianyan Island was Wushuang Island, and Wushuang Island was lost in his hands. Even if Lu Yi said that the spirit island was lost, it was fine as long as the people were fine. But it was still a top-class spirit island. Tang Jun seemed to have accepted it, but he wasn't so open-minded. He had been thinking about when he could take Tianyan Island back, but he also knew that this idea was unrealistic. Tianyan realm was a native realm, and it had the entire Wanxiang galaxy behind it. Who could take it? A few days ago, he suddenly heard that there were some changes in Tianyan Island, so he immediately went to check it out. In the end, he found that Tianyan Island was really just a high-class spirit island. He was overjoyed, thinking that this was Tianyan realm's retribution. The changes in Tianyan Island couldn't be hidden from the senses of those who paid attention. It was originally a commercial spirit island, and there were countless cultivators coming and going, so there was no way to keep the news a secret. A high-class spirit island and a top-class spirit island were only one level apart, but in reality, the difference was like heaven and earth. One didn't have a spirit jade mine, while the other had a spirit jade mine. The value of the two couldn't be compared at all. 4 spirit islands, from low class to high class, there was only an increase in quality. There was no substantial change. Only when a top-class spirit island became a top-class spirit island would there be a fundamental change. Otherwise, Tianyan realm wouldn't have tried so hard to take Wushuang Island. They had to take Jiao Yan's reputation into consideration, but no one could ignore the temptation of a top-class spirit island. And I heard that the situation on Tianyan Island is constantly changing. If one day Tianyan Island becomes a medium-class spirit island, low-class spirit island, and then a deserted island, then there will be a good show to watch. By seizing Wushuang Island, Tianyan Island had offended Jiao Yan. If a top-tier spiritual island were to become an inferior spiritual island or even a deserted island, Tianyan Island would suffer a double loss. It was no wonder that Tang Jun was gloating. Lu Yi had expected this to happen. Wushuang Island's prosperity was achieved by the small constellation hall. When he took back the small constellation hall that day, Wushuang Island would return to its original state sooner or later. The reason why it could continue to maintain its status was that it had accumulated a lot of starry sky energy. Now, it was only consuming it, but there was no accumulation. Naturally, its grade kept falling. Now, it had fallen from a top-class spirit island to a high-class spirit island, and it would fall even faster in the future. In less than half a year, Tianyan Island would become a deserted island. He wondered how the cultivators of Tianyan realm would feel when that happened. Kid, what you said back then is true. Tang Jun chuckled. When Lu Yi parted ways with Chu Shen outside Che Ling realm, he had said to Chu Shen that he would sit and watch him build a tall building, entertain guests, and watch his building collapse. But now, the building had collapsed. As he spoke, Tang Jun's expression suddenly turned serious. Thinking about it carefully, he felt that something was not quite right. The unparalleled island had only started to change after Lu Yi had taken over. It had slowly become a top-grade spirit island. When the unparalleled island had been conquered and Lu Yi had returned, the unparalleled island had deteriorated from a top-grade spirit island to a top-grade spirit island in a few months. However, a deserted island like Three World Island had inexplicably come to life, and its grade was improving, just like Wushuang Island in the past. Tang Jun's heart skipped a beat, and he couldn't help but glance at Lu Yi. Could Lu Yi have something to do with all this? Otherwise, how could things be so coincidental? Also, when he chose Three World Island to build Wushuang Island, Lu Yi seemed to be certain that this deserted island would come to life. It turned out that his foresight was not bad. However, this seemed to have nothing to do with foresight. However, if the changes in Three World Island and Tianyan Island really had anything to do with Lu Yi, Tang Jun could not understand. What kind of shocking method was this to be able to change the grade of a spirit island at will? Kid? Tang Jun opened his mouth. Lu Yi turned his head and saw that Tang Jun wanted to say something but hesitated. Finally, he said, "Forget it." Regardless of whether this had anything to do with Lu Yi, he was happy to hear about it. Moreover, if Lu Yi really had such a ridiculous method, it would be better if he did not ask too much about it. "Is this what the two of you wanted to talk about?" Lu Yi asked. Tang Jun nodded. That was it. There was nothing else. Recently, Three World Island had been very peaceful. The constellations below were all cultivating. The only difference was that there were many mermaids here. "What do you want to talk about?" Tang Jun asked. He still remembered what Lu Yi had said. "I have to leave for a while," Lu Yi said. He had told the two of them about this before. At that time, the time was not right. He had some things to do and could not leave for the time being. Now that he was busy and had cultivated to the peak of the constellation realm, it was time for him to pursue a higher realm. Wan Xiao asked, "When will you be back?" Even though Lu Yi was only a constellation cultivator and his cultivation was much weaker than Tang Jun's, ever since he came to the Sea of Constellations, he had been the backbone of the cultivators of the three realms. The changes that were happening on Three World Island were all because of him. Everything else aside, if he had not facilitated the trade with the mermaids, the cultivators of the three realms would not have enough spiritual jades to cultivate. They would not have had the funds to complete the defensive formation on Three World Island either. In comparison, Wan Xiao felt that she was very useless. Apart from her late moon jade cultivation base, she had nothing else to offer. Lu Yi shook his head. "I don't know for now, but it shouldn't be too soon." He did not know where the Spirita's ancestral grounds were. He had to send Li Shang back first before he could attend to his own matters and make a trip to the Yin Yang Great Millstone. Wan Xiao pondered for a moment, then said, "Our island is still in the process of being reborn. According to fellow Taoist Tang's previous experience, if this continues, our island has a chance of becoming a high-grade spiritual island within a year. Let's not talk about high-grade. Even a mid-grade spiritual island would be attractive enough to the cultivators of the outside world. However, the cultivators of the three realms might not be able to deal with opponents that are too strong. What should we do if an enemy invades us?" Tang Jun said, "That's right, Ti. Fellow Taoist Wan and I have been worried about this recently. You have a good relationship with the mermaids, so can you ask them to lend you a hand when the time comes? Of course, if everything is peaceful, then nothing will happen." They knew that Lu Yi had a good relationship with the mermaids. However, they did not know to what extent. Lu Yi said, "Don't worry." Hearing this, Lu Yi said, "You don't have to worry about that. Although the mermaid clan's base is under the sea, our three-world island is actually a transit point for them when they go out to sea. If they want to go out to sea, they have to go through Three World Island. I've helped the mermaid clan a little before, and now we have a long-term business relationship with each other. They can be said to be 3 World Island's most solid ally. If our island is in trouble, you can just ask the mermaid clan for help. End of chapter. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.